Chapter 418. It was obvious that Xianxia was telling the truth. If a battle were to break out, then even if Soul Fighter's junior brothers and sisters didn't die, they would still suffer heavy casualties. Senior brother, kill him. A mere late-stage primordial soul cultivator wants to stop our senior brother? A firefly dares to compete with the sun and moon? You overestimate yourself. Senior brother, kill him. Who is our senior brother? Even a mid-stage manifestation realm super genius is not worth mentioning. Senior brother, kill him. As soon as Soul Fighter's words fell, the people from Limitless Demon Palace heaved a sigh of relief. From their point of view, Xianxia was an idiot. If he didn't warn them, they, who were enraged, wouldn't have realized the danger they were in. If that was the case, they would definitely be caught in a chaotic battle and they might have to pay the price with their lives. However, in the end, victory would still belong to them. This was because Soul Fighter's strength had been deeply ingrained in their hearts. But after Xianxia's words, the outcome would be completely different. As long as Soul Fighter killed Xianxia, he would join forces with them. Then, whatever bullshit battle formation would be destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds in front of them. Boom. Xianxia took a step forward, and the incomparably hard lava beneath him exploded. His entire body was like a cannonball, shuttling through the lava at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed a distance of several hundred feet. When he arrived in front of Soul Fighter, his body shook, and he drew his sword. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom boom boom. It was a simple attack, but it seemed to have sucked in the air within a radius of several hundred feet. Strong winds raged and the air exploded. It was like the surging of the sea and thousands of horses galloping. His entire body was like a demon god soaring into the sky. His skin shone with a faint blood-red crystal. His black eyes were emitting a soul-stirring cold light. His aura and pressure directly blocked everyone's mouths. All of them gasped in horror. No one expected that Xianxia, who was only at the late-stage primordial soul realm, would be so powerful in one move. Not good. Soul Fighter did not expect Xianxia to attack at such an astonishing speed. As the chief disciple of Limitless Demon Palace's Broken Heart Hall and an expert in the early stage of Blessed Realm, he was one of the top monstrous geniuses even among the thousands of halls in Limitless Demon Palace. He had the battle prowess to challenge super geniuses, but at that moment, when he sensed the power in Xianxia's sword strike, he was still shocked. What was left of his pride turned grave, and he did not dare to hesitate. In an instant, streams of pitch-black demon chi shot out from his body and enveloped him in a pitch-black ball of light. Just as the powerful protective light ball was formed, Xianxia's incomparably sharp sword light, which was as fast as lightning, bombarded the light ball. Rumble! Soul Fighter's body retreated explosively. The light ball vibrated and spewed out layers of pitch-black light curtains, which were like waves of tide, blocking Xianxia's sword light. Even so, Soul Fighter Mo felt that he was being strangled by an incomparably fierce force, which shook his blood and chi. Xianxia's figure was closing in on him step by step, like a demon god that could destroy the heaven and earth. He attacked Soul Fighter Mo's mind, making him feel like he was about to be destroyed, strangled, and torn apart. Destructive sword will? He has condensed the destructive sword will? Soul Fighter's mind was greatly shaken, and he instantly understood what was going on. At the beginning, Soul Fighter had felt the aura of the destructive sword will on Xianxia's body. Although he was surprised at that time, it was not enough to be shocked. After all, although the destructive sword will was rare in the central mainland, it was not a consummate skill. Moreover, it was one of the most difficult sword attributes to cultivate. But now, Xianxia's destructive sword will had affected his mind. What did that mean? The destructive sword will. Fortunately, Soul Fighter's mental strength was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Otherwise, he would not be worthy of his name. Being suppressed by Xianxia, a mere late-stage primordial soul realm martial artist, from the beginning made Soul Fighter feel humiliated and angry. Roar! Soul Fighter roared angrily, and a violent aura suddenly rose from his mind. All the negative emotions disappeared at once. At the same time, he exerted all his strength to activate the upper spiritual treasure giant sword and blasted it out. Boom, boom, boom. At such a close distance, Soul Fighter attacked with thousands of swords in an instant, and Qianhao's speed was even more astonishing. The five-element sword was like bright fireworks, dazzling the eyes of the onlookers. But every strike seemed to be the first to arrive, completely suppressing Soul Fighter. The onlookers, whether it was Qianhao's side or Soul Fighter's side, were all staring with their eyes wide open. Due to the restriction of their own realms, they did not know how terrifying the power contained in the collision between the two men was. But the turbulent flow of sword light that raged out by the two men instantly left thousands of holes in the hard lava-petrified ground. Each sword mark was dozens of feet deep, and that was enough to explain everything. How can he be so strong? This kid is in the late primordial soul stage. If it were me, I'm afraid I would be killed instantly. Senior brother seems to be suppressed by him. Soul Fighter's people were all aghast. They were all people who had seen the world. As disciples of Limitless Demon Palace, which one of them was not a first-class genius? What kind of genius had they not seen before? But Qianhao, who was only in the late primordial soul stage, was able to fight evenly with Soul Fighter, who was an incomparably powerful existence in their hearts, and even had a slight advantage. This was something that they had never seen before. Boss is so strong. I love Boss to death. This is a man, this is a man. Ah. Huyen Aobu's face was full of excitement as he roared in his heart. The gaze he looked at Qianhao with was abnormally hot. Fortunately, this guy had a handle. Otherwise, just based on his appearance, he was afraid that people would mistake him for a cat in heat, and the kind that was serious to the point of being horny. Boss is really too awesome. I didn't expect him to be so strong. No wonder junior sister is so infatuated with him. What do I have to compete with him? Master is right, there is always someone better than you. A real genius will shine anywhere. Limitless Immortal Palace. This is ridiculous. I am only the chief disciple of Limitless Immortal Palace. What right do I have to be proud? I always thought that junior sister and I were the best partners, Dao companions. This is ridiculous, ridiculous. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenshu stared at the insufferably arrogant Qianhao, and a trace of self-mockery emerged from the depths of their hearts. When the two of them saw Chen Shui and saw her rapid improvement, they thought that they had found the most satisfactory Dao companion. They did not give in to each other, and even made the brothers who were close friends and had gone through life and death together fall out and fight. But today, they discovered that not only was Chen Shui's strength beyond their imagination, but when Chen Shui rejected them, the so-called sweetheart was completely beyond their understanding. It was also at this time that they realized how shallow and ignorant they were. At the same time, they were also incomparably ashamed. The love rival that they wanted to suppress had become their savior today. Without Qianhao, they would have died at the hands of Soul Fighter. They were sure of this. Kacha. Ting. It took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in an instant. What Qianhao did not expect was that when he pushed his physical strength, true essence and sword intent to the extreme, and firmly suppressed Soul Fighter, giving him no chance to breathe, the five-element sword that had followed Qianhao for many years, under the bombardment of violent forces, made a cracking sound. Although it was very faint, it could not escape the perception of its owner, Qianhao. Not good. The five-element sword has reached its limit. If it breaks, the fusion of the five divine beasts will dissipate. With the increase of Qianhao's cultivation level, the nourishment of true essence, and the refinement of the five divine beasts, the five-element sword already had the attributes of a high-grade spiritual weapon. But in the end, it could not keep up with Qianhao's pace. Qianhao had long been aware of this, but he was not in a hurry to find someone to refine it. This was because his sword would only be the strongest if it was refined by himself. Moreover, Qianhao and the mysterious existence in his mind were further integrated, and there was only one last material left. When the time came, he could refine it. But he did not expect that it would become a fatal flaw today. The valiant Soul Fighter was not inferior to him in terms of strength, and the sword in his hand was a high-grade spiritual treasure, which was countless times stronger, causing the five elements sword to be in imminent danger. I must not let the five elements sword break. Once the five-element sword broke, the five divine beasts in Chen Hao's mind would be severely injured. Because the five-element sword was the life of the divine beasts, if the five-element sword broke, the integration of Chen Hao and the five divine beasts would also disappear. How could that be? One had to know that at this moment, Chen Hao and the five divine beasts had truly integrated into the sixth step. How much effort and energy had he expended? Gotcha! A clear cracking sound came from the five-element sword. Boom! Whir! At this critical moment, Chen Hao's blood and qi surged. His muscles, tendons, bones, and even every cell were activated to the extreme in an instant. He withdrew the five-element sword and suddenly swung his palm to meet the piercing sword light. Rumble. The loud and clear dragon roar had just appeared when it disappeared with a terrifying explosion, as if its neck had been broken. Chen Hao was sent flying, and he spat out a mouthful of essence blood in midair. A series of screams filled with various emotions rang out. Ha! Soul Fighter laughed wildly. You are strong, really strong. I, Soul Fighter, have never admired anyone, but you are one. Unfortunately, your sword is too weak. Ha! I want to see how you are going to fight with me. The sound of the five-element sword breaking was heard by Soul Fighter, who bore the brunt of it. How could he not be excited after being suppressed by Chen Hao's strong attacks without the slightest chance to breathe? Hearing Soul Fighter's words, the faces of Chen Shui and the others changed. At their level, everyone knew the importance of a sword. This was not like when they were Hotian realm warriors, where they could casually change to a sword to solve the problem. In a battle, even if Chen Hao still had a sword, but if it was not tempered, even if it was a sword of a higher level than the five-element sword, it would not be able to display its power. Not to mention the unity of man and sword, like an arm and a finger. Chapter 419. I'll show you the true power of the creation realm. Condense. Boom boom boom, surging life force burst forth from Soul Fighter's body like a torrential flood bursting through a dam. The lava boulders within a radius of several thousand feet instantly exploded as if they had gained sentience. Under Soul Fighter's control, they condensed into gigantic lava giants with terrifying auras and surrounded Chen Hao in the middle. The creation realm had condensed objects into form. The spirit qi of heaven and earth within a radius of several hundred miles surged over. The fire attribute energy, which was the main source of energy, caused the entire sky to turn into balls of burning flames. Chen Shui and the others were greatly shocked, and their eyes widened in horror. They had seen the power of the creation realm before, but the power displayed by Soul Fighter, who was at the initial stage of the creation realm, was definitely much stronger than that of an ordinary expert at the middle stage of the creation realm. Every blade of grass, every tree, every grain of sand, and every rock could be condensed into a powerful monster under the remarkable ability of the creation realm, which was also the creation realm. It was similar to the Taoist technique of casting beans to form soldiers. The monster that was condensed was completely under the control of the spellcaster. What was more amazing was that this was an application of the laws of heaven and earth, which borrowed the energy of heaven and earth. For the spellcaster himself, he only needed to use the energy used to activate the monster. Kill him. Ch-ch-ch. Bang bang bang. The lava giants instantly absorbed enough energy, and each of them looked like red-hot iron men. There were 100 of them, and each of them gave off the aura of a giant at the late stage of the primordial soul realm. When Soul Fighter gave the order, they violently pressed down on Chen Hao from all directions. The sky and the ground were completely sealed. Damn it! Chen Hao's expression was cold, and a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. At this point, there was no way out for him. The reason why he had held back, and when the battle began, he took advantage of the fact that his opponent had not paid enough attention to him to launch an attack, was to prevent Soul Fighter from using his manifestation stage supernatural powers. But the five-element sword's failure had caused all his efforts to go to waste. Fight! With a roar, Chen Hao's speed instantly increased to the limit. Fist shadows, palm shadows, and leg shadows, with a violent posture and an unbelievable speed, he began to fight the 100 lava giants. What surprised everyone was that when facing these lava giants, Chen Hao's energy was completely locked within his body, not leaking out in the slightest. Relying on his incomparably tyrannical body strength, every move he made was met with his fists, palms, elbows, knees, shoulders, legs, feet, and even his head. They all became Chen Hao's weapons. Bang bang bang, muffled explosions continued to ring out. The seemingly incomparably powerful lava giants were actually unable to contend against Chen Hao's fleshly body. Each of Chen Hao's attacks seemed to have been precisely calculated. He had accurately calculated the timing of each lava giant's attacks, and he had even borrowed their strength to create a soul-shaking destructive power. This made Soul Fighter and the others, who had been feeling smug just a moment ago, widen their eyes in shock. Could it be that Soul Fighter's lava giants were all paper tigers? They obviously weren't. Just by looking at Chen Hao's extremely violent yet coherent, smooth and highly efficient attacks, as well as the power generated when they exploded and turned into rubble, one could understand just how strong a confrontation of strength was. You think you can stop me with this trash? Chen Hao's fighting spirit was completely ignited. He discovered that his 1 year of bitter training in the Cultivation Hall had revealed a strength that surpassed his own imagination. This was especially true when it came to the cultivation of the gravitational field. Although he had spent most of his time in the gravitational field practicing his swordsmanship, he had challenged the limits of his body time and time again, causing his body to reach an inconceivable degree of toughness. Now that he had completely erupted, it was absolutely terrifying. The sword is just a way to vent one's strength. One is an extension of the arm. The sword's array formation increases one's attack power, and the sword's point condenses one's strength, making it incomparably swift and fierce. If I can use my body as a sword and condense the array formation runes on my body, the only thing I lack is the sharpness of the sword's point. I can't rely on anything else. I don't major in the sword Dao, so why should I be so obsessed with the sword Dao? No sword in the hand, no sword in the heart. My entire body is a sword. Why must I use a sword? No one knew that Chen Hao, who was immersed in the battle, had a trace of enlightenment because of the breaking of the 5-element sword. They only saw that Chen Hao's attacks were becoming increasingly swift and fierce, more and more effective. What surprised them even more was that Chen Hao's entire body was emitting an incomparably swift and fierce sword intent. He was obviously made of flesh and blood, but his palms, fists, and fingers all seemed to condense into rays of sword light. How can he be so strong? Soul Fighter looked at Chen Hao, who was closing in on him at breakneck speed. His eyes were filled with disbelief. None of the lava giants that he had condensed were a match for Chen Hao. A trace of ruthlessness flashed across his face. Soul Fighter knew that he could not wait any longer. He did not expect the 100 lava giants to be able to kill Chen Hao. He only wanted to block Chen Hao's footwork and let him condense his killing move. Die for me, roar! The dazzling sword light finally erupted, tearing a huge black crack in the void. A horrifying pressure shrouded a radius of 100 miles at this moment. Chen Shui and the others held their breaths. Everyone knew that the real battle was about to begin. No matter how dangerous and terrifying the previous battles were, they were just the prelude to the real battle between the two. The first was Chen Hao's sudden attack, and the second was Soul Fighter blocking Chen Hao's power condensation. At that moment, when Chen Hao easily killed the 100 lava giants, what awaited him was the true power of Soul Fighter, a genius at the initial stage of Blessed Realm. Definitely an instant kill. Definitely. This brat's physical body and strength may be ridiculously strong, but without a sword he is a toothless tiger. How can he fight against our senior brother? He is seeking his own death. He doesn't have a sword, but he wants to fight in close combat. If that's not seeking death, then what is? Just when Chen Shui and the others were filled with worry and Soul Fighter's people were filled with anticipation, their hearts suddenly thumped. For the time being, I can't condense runic arrays on my body, and I can't make my body as sharp as a sword. I can't be fierce, so I will be gentle, Russell. In the face of Soul Fighter's terrifying attack, Chen Hao, who was like a King Kong and had been incredibly violent just a moment ago, suddenly stopped moving forward. His aura instantly underwent a shocking change. He had been able to use his body as a sword, and his sword will and the will of the destructive sword Dao had suddenly become incredibly gentle. He was like a flowing stream, a falling leaf that swayed in the wind, or a white cloud that floated in the sky. He floated in the air and was gentle. This was definitely not the essence of Tai Chi, which combines strength and gentleness. It was also not any of the ultimate ancient martial arts that Qin Hao had learned in his previous life. Instead, it was the gentle sword Dao of the secular sword Dao. The secular sword Dao that had always dropped the ball, this time, in Qin Hao's enlightenment, was like a docile lamb, following his heart and moving as he wished. Qin Hao's handsome face was devoid of joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. There was only tranquility like water. Under Soul Fighter's violent attack, he was like a falling leaf, carefree and unrestrained, leisurely and carefree. When the enemy advanced, he retreated. When the enemy retreated, he advanced. Soul Fighter felt as if he had sunk into a viscous liquid, suffocating and uncomfortable. Not only was he unable to exert his strength, when he tried to exert his strength, it was as if he had attacked cotton. Layers of gentle hidden energy slapped against him, until his strength was completely dissolved. Cough cough. Boss is really a perfect person? Huyen Aobo was dumbfounded. The originally nervous him now had countless stars in his eyes, as if he had seen a peerless beauty dancing gracefully. His heartbeat and breathing quickened. What kind of ultimate technique is this? It's too magical. No one knew what kind of ultimate technique Qin Hao was using. If Qin Hao had a sword in his hand, they might be able to imagine it. But at this moment, Qin Hao was barehanded and could not see any mystery at all. The secular sword Dao contained all kinds of sword Daos. Among them, the soft sword Dao was known as the most useless sword Dao. It was also the least popular sword Dao because not many people liked it. The reason was very simple. The soft sword Dao's strongest point was its defense. It was impenetrable and unyielding. If you were soft, it would be softer. If you were hard, it would still be soft. It would soften you to death, suffocate you to death, depress you to death. There was no room for discussion. It was precisely because of this that the swordsmen of the soft sword Dao were usually women. Moreover, they were usually kind-hearted women. Even if you were made of refined steel or a sharp knife, you would still be able to bend it to your finger. You want to dominate the world? Sorry, you will only be forced to become crazy. Soft sword Dao? Only Qin Shui's eyes flashed with excitement. She already knew that the sword Dao Qin Hao had obtained was the secular sword Dao. She also knew that the secular sword Dao was abnormal and difficult to cultivate. Although Qin Hao was not holding a sword, the destruction sword Dao just now and the gentle breeze drizzle still gave her some clues. A woo, rumble, but. Just as everyone was staring at the battle between Soul Fighter and Qin Hao, there was a terrifying beast roar in the distance. Even hundreds of miles away, everyone could feel the earth trembling. It was definitely not the tremor caused by the battle between Qin Hao and Soul Fighter. A monster horde? At this time, everyone finally diverted a bit of their attention and sensed the change. Oh no, what a terrifying aura. Tens of thousands of them? In a moment, the terrifying aura of the extraterrestrial monsters spread over. Everyone could not help but fly up into the air one by one. When they saw the dense monster horde, their faces changed in shock. An army of hundreds of thousands of monsters was flying towards them like a torrent of steel. Senior brother, there are hundreds of thousands of monsters. Senior brother, kill him quickly. Let's run away immediately. Boss, at this moment, people on both sides could not help but cry out. There was no other way. Just looking at the scale of the monsters made everyone tremble in fear, let alone fighting. With just a few people, they would definitely be trampled by the terrifying monster horde. Chapter 420. Kill your mother. If I could kill you, I would have done it long ago. Soul Fighter's face was gloomy as he sensed the overwhelming aura of the monsters. He knew that there was no hope for him to deal with Qin Hao and the rest today. If he didn't escape now, he would have to stay here forever. An army of hundreds of thousands of monsters. How strong was the monster army? How many monsters were in the creation realm? It was absolutely terrifying. Count yourselves lucky. The next time we meet, all of you will die. Let's go. Soul Fighter's figure flashed as he gave the order. He took the lead and fled into the distance. The people from Limitless Demon Palace also quickly followed. Each of them increased their speed to the limit. No way? This, Soul Fighter and the rest had only rushed a short distance when they were dumbfounded. Countless monsters appeared in front of them. Obviously, the size of the monster horde was once again beyond their imagination. Moreover, they did not know when they had already quietly surrounded them. They were everywhere in the sky and on the ground. There were countless flying monsters, covering the entire sky. This also made them realize that when the monster aura was released, the monster horde had already surrounded them. Under normal circumstances, Chen Hao and Qin Shui's powerful perception should have already sensed it, especially Qin Hao who had God's eye. But this time, whether it was Qin Hao or Qin Shui, they did not sense the huge monster horde surrounding them. Facing the powerful Soul Fighter, Chen Hao was immersed in the battle. How could he spare any attention? And Qin Shui's heart was hanging on Chen Hao's safety. She was ready to take action at any time and did not care about the surrounding situation. As for the others, although their perception was much weaker than the two of them, their attention was also focused on the battle between Chen Hao and Soul Fighter. So, now it was a tragedy. Kill. Take advantage of the fact that the monster horde has not fully formed. Kill. In panic, Soul Fighter ordered and suddenly sped up again, leading the people from Limitless Demon Palace to rush in a direction. After Chen Hao jumped out of the state of mind of the soft sword, his expression became unusually dignified. His powerful perception instantly spread out and his heart became more and more shocked. This is the most powerful part of the monster horde. The Guardians and the Guardian Squad usually look for monsters that are alone or small monster hordes that can be dealt with quickly. They're worried that the ripples from the battle will attract the monsters around them. Damn it, it's fine if it's our first time, but don't tell me that Soul Fighter and those idiots didn't know about it. Chen Hao was right. Soul Fighter and the others were indeed inexperienced rookies. Otherwise, such a situation would not have occurred. Boss, what should we do? Huyan Aoba and the others quickly gathered around Chen Hao and asked solemnly. They could sense that no matter which direction they were in, it had already been sealed off. If they wanted to escape, perhaps only the Blessed Realm experts who could tear through the air and fly would be able to do so. In other words, among their group, including the people from Limitless Demon Palace, Soul Fighter was the only one who had a chance of survival. Moreover, the premise was that he wasn't targeted by a manifestation realm monster. What else can we do? These monsters aren't a group, but a group of monsters gathered from all directions. They aren't much stronger than the monsters we killed. Get into a charging formation and fight. Little Shui, you and I will be the vanguard. Kill them all. Chen Hao relied on his powerful perception to identify a relatively weak direction and led everyone to rush over. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In just a moment, Huyan Aoba and the other 12 people formed a sharp triangle with Chen Hao. Chen Hao was the fierce vanguard. Obviously, AO Tian's members had long been well-trained in such a charging formation. Before they even encountered the monster horde, Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu were once again shocked by AO Tian's battle formation. They couldn't help but be impressed. This group of people who they didn't put in their eyes at first, after forming a battle formation, showed their combat power. It was obvious that their cultivation was higher, but they could only be used as a foil. You two stay in the battle formation. If anyone is in danger, you two go. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu had been subconsciously subdued by Chen Hao's imposing manner. After hearing Chen Hao's words, they didn't even think about it and responded in a deep voice. It was as if they were receiving orders from a superior. Aoba, send out a distress signal. Top grade. 1 billion high-grade primordial crystal stones. Time limit, get here in 2 hours. Mission success rate is 50%. Save us, mission success. This, boss, where do we get 1 billion? Send it. Yes. When facing a life-threatening situation and unable to resist, any Guardian group can send a distress signal to the Alliance through the token, directly forming an emergency mission. But under normal circumstances, no one would ask for help at all. There were two reasons. First, emergency missions required an expensive price that most people couldn't afford. Second, when facing a life-threatening situation, no matter how urgent the mission was, how fast could it be? By the time the person who received the mission arrived, they would have already died. This was also the reason why Limitless Demon Palace and the others didn't ask for help. Moreover, as Xianxia said, as long as the other party arrived within the specified time limit, whether they died or not, it would be considered as a part of the mission. Moreover, it wouldn't become a bad debt just because they died. The Alliance would directly find the force behind the person who asked for help and pay. But Xianxia asked for help. A cruel war was about to break out. Xianxia led the group to form a charging formation, and they displayed astonishing lethality. They were like a flood of steel that charged forward, and no monster could stop their footwork. Soul Fighter and the rest, who were fleeing in another direction, had also formed a battle formation. If not for Xianxia and the rest, their battle formation would have looked pretty good, and their coordination was also very smooth. However, after seeing the situation of Xianxia and the rest, and looking at them again, they were simply dregs. They simply couldn't be compared at all. Ao. Boom boom boom. As the battle progressed, more and more monsters appeared and became stronger. Densely packed, one couldn't see the end of it. The more Soul Fighter and the others fought, the more frightened they became. In less than an hour, the battle formation they had formed had been utterly defeated. The monsters had been split into several groups and they were now in a dangerous situation where they had to fight alone. What made everyone's faces turn pale was the fact that Soul Fighter, the leader of the group, had abandoned them when he saw that the situation was not good. He had torn open the void and left. Husband and wife were birds of the same fate, but when disaster struck, they flew away separately. What's more, they were just fellow disciples. Soul Fighter's departure was in fact within everyone's expectations. At this point, the only thing they could count on was the demon venerables will left in them by the experts of Limitless Demon Palace. It didn't seem like they would be killed by a sudden attack. Therefore, they gritted their teeth and persevered. Once their lives were truly threatened, they would meet the conditions to activate the demon venerable's will. But boom. Ao. The first guy who couldn't hold on finally succeeded in activating the demon venerable's will. But at this moment, the commander-level monsters in the creation realm, who were thousands of meters away, simultaneously activated terrifying energy that tore through the void. Then, with a loud rumble, the newly formed miniature grotto heaven turned into a huge black hole in front of everyone's eyes. All the monsters within 1,000 feet were directly swallowed. They screamed miserably as they were torn to pieces by the violent and chaotic energy. Sacrifice for me. A person who knew that he was going to die for sure could not care less at this moment. Along with his resolute voice, the essence, energy, and spirit of his entire body instantly burst out crazily. Soon after, a pure and mysterious energy floated out from between his eyebrows. With a cheech sound, it fled into the distance at an astonishing speed of 1,000 miles in an instant. Primordial spirit projection. This was the only way they could think of. But, as soon as this essence soul escaped the siege of the monster horde, a faintly discernible, illusory flame enveloped him from all directions. The feelings of fear and despair were shattered in a flash, and he lost all consciousness. Heavenly fire. It had to be said that this was cruel for everyone. Under normal circumstances, when a cultivator sacrificed his primordial spirit, he would be able to escape successfully. The reason was simple. First, after turning into a primordial spirit, his speed would be beyond the limits of his physical body, and he would reach a level where even creation realm experts would shrink back. Second, ordinary attacks were basically ineffective against the primordial spirit. But now, because of the geographical environment, the monsters here were basically experts with fire energy. There were countless monsters who could control heavenly fire. And heavenly fire was one of the main nemeses of the primordial spirit. Dead? We're all going to die. Fuck that Soul Fighter. If it wasn't for him, how could we have died? How could we have been surrounded by monsters? He escaped. What should we do? I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Don't fucking scream, the demon venerables can't save us. We can't activate at the same time, but we can abandon our physical bodies and escape with our primordial spirits. I don't believe that these beasts can stop us at the same time. Now that things have come to this is the only way. If no one has any objections, we will sacrifice our primordial spirits at the same time. Whoever survives will be considered lucky. In the end, under the threat of death, more than 10 people clicked together. This was the only way they could escape. Even if it was only their primordial spirits that escaped, and it would take more than 10 years for them to recover their current strength, they could only accept it. At least, after the primordial spirits escaped, there was still hope for a comeback. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the remaining 10 people activated all the strength in their bodies, and their primordial spirits left their bodies. Raging heavenly flames that filled the sky also erupted from the bodies of countless monsters at the same time. More than 10 people fought with their lives on the line, but they were all like the cups on the tea table, none of them succeeded in escaping. Open! Boom, boom, boom. When Xianxia finally led the group to a lava mountain, Xianxia spread out his 5 fingers, and a violent energy formed a huge palm, which blasted a deep hole in the hard mountain. In an instant, the huge rocks turned into weapons to attack the monsters. Everyone, go in and dig down. Keep digging, Xiao Shuer and I will guard the entrance. Xianxia's voice was extremely calm. In this life and death situation, he knew that if they were any later, no matter how strong their battle formation was, they would follow in the footsteps of Limitless Demon Palace and the others. Because now, it was not just one manifestation realm monster, but countless of them. Under such absolute power, how could Huyan Aobua and the others resist? Chapter 421. Beep, 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 beep. In the Alliance Hall of the 160th Supply Station, a series of urgent cries suddenly rang out. The staff of the Alliance, who were receiving the Guardians and the Guardian Corps in the cabinet, suddenly showed a surprised expression. An emergency request for help? An emergency request for help was rare, even in a large city, and the 160th Supply Station would not have an emergency request for help for several years. Someone actually issued an emergency request for help? Quick, connect it. In the cabinet hall, there was a circular platform with a diameter of 300 feet, covered with complicated runes. The runes were densely packed with purple crystals, one of which was flashing rapidly. After a staff member connected it, the message issued by Huyan Aobua was immediately transmitted. When everyone received the content of the message, they suddenly showed a look of shock. A top-level request for help. A top-level request for help? Isn't this too exaggerated? Beep, beep, beep. In the midst of everyone's surprise, the information of the members of the proud Heaven Guardian Corps suddenly appeared on the huge display screen. Xianxia and the others' Guardian level, age, faction, battle record, and other detailed information all appeared in front of everyone. A top-level emergency request for help, 1 billion. These guys are really daring to shout. However, there are a few of them with deep backgrounds. Execute. An old man quickly scanned the information of Xianxia and the others and gave the order. Request to connect to the proud Heaven Guardian Corps. Beep. After a crisp sound, Xianxia, who was in the middle of a battle, felt the Guardian Corps' token vibrate. Although Xianxia knew that once the connection was connected, his current situation would be clearly seen by the people of the Alliance, he did not care so much. Compared to the lives of his brothers and sisters, nothing else mattered. He quickly urged his mind and opened the connection between the token and the Alliance. Voila, no way? The dozens of staff members of the Alliance stopped what they were doing and stared at the screen. Through the token of the proud Heaven Guardian Corps, the huge psychic mirror screen showed the environment around Xianxia. The densely packed monster horde stretched as far as the eye could see. There was no need to sense the aura of the scene at all. These experienced staff members could determine that the number and level of the monster horde had gathered to a terrifying degree. What surprised everyone even more was the battle between Xianxia and Xianxue. According to the information of the two, Xianxia was only at the late-stage primordial spirit realm, and Xianxia was only at the half-step manifestation realm. But at that moment, the strength, especially their battle skills, exceeded everyone's imagination. Location locked. Aura of the monster horde. A top-level emergency request. A series of orders was quickly issued. Soon after, an old man's sonorous voice rang throughout Supply Depot number 160. At the same time, every Guardian group registered in the Alliance Hall received detailed information about the advancement mission. What's a top-level emergency request worth 1 billion? The Guardian Corps, who were hunting monsters in the wilderness, were a little surprised when they received the vibration of the Guardian Corps token. One had to know that under normal circumstances, the Guardian Order token would only be used in the Alliance Hall. The members of the Guardian Corps were also contacted with their personal Guardian Corps tokens. Why would the Guardian Corps token send a message? When everyone curiously opened it one by one, they all revealed a hint of surprise. An emergency request worth 1 billion upper-grade primordial crystal stones. What kind of concept was this? Any Guardian Corps member who arrived at the location within the specified time would receive 50% of the reward. What kind of concept was this? Men die for wealth and birds die for food. Moreover, everyone knew that this mission had been issued to all Guardian Corps members at the Guardian of the number 160 Supply Depot. As long as they confirmed it, they would accept the mission. As long as they arrived at the scene, they would receive 50% of the reward. That was 500 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones. Although it would be divided among many people, it was definitely not a small sum. After all, there were only about 24,000 Guardian Corps members in the number 160 Supply Depot. How many could arrive within the time limit? Definitely not more than 1/10. If 2,000 Guardian Corps members split 500 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones, each Guardian Corps member would receive 250,000 upper-grade primordial crystal stones. Kill them. Let's go. After confirming their distance to the destination through the Guardian Corps token and knowing that they could arrive within the time limit, they were all excited. Are we going to save them? Some of the solo martial artists above the middle stage of Blessed Realm also received the news. After thinking for a while, they also headed directly to the destination. When they saw the mission message, these experts did not think that Xianxia and the others could last until they arrived. However, they were here to train and join in the fun. How could they not participate in such a good thing with rewards? A bunch of idiots. If it's possible to issue an emergency request, why wouldn't I? They'll be finished after 10 minutes at most. Before they die, they still have to ask the sect behind them to repay a huge sum of money. Soul Fighter also received the emergency request from the Alliance. However, in his opinion, Xianxia and the others were simply idiots. At that moment, Soul Fighter's face was pale, and his breathing was extremely weak. However, he was still desperately trying to escape in the direction of the supply station. Although he was at the initial stage of the Blessed Realm, his ability to tear through the void and fly could only last for a few seconds. The terrifying energy turbulence in the chaotic space was not something he could withstand for a long time. Fortunately, it was enough for him to escape the monster's encirclement and save his life. Soon, some of the Guardian Corps members nearby arrived. However, the monster horde, which numbered in the hundreds of thousands, made them flinch. They were hundreds of miles away, and no one dared to take even half a step forward. They could only stop and wait for the other Guardian Corps to arrive. This is already equivalent to a monster horde. It's one thing for the trapped guy to accept his fate, but he's asking for help. Maybe it's someone with a strong background and a lot of money? If there's a glimmer of hope, shouldn't we fight for it? Even if we're surrounded, I don't think we can last 10 minutes. That's right. Maybe he's just paying us to avenge him. After half an hour, we should be able to gather more than 1,000 Guardian Corps members. Then, there won't be any problems. Everyone, charge over. As long as we reach the location within 2 hours, we'll be fine. Some of the Guardian Corps members who had already arrived watched from afar and discussed among themselves. However, it had been an hour since they received the mission, and the mission instructions on the token were still flashing. This proved that the person who issued the mission was still alive. Hey, brothers, if they can hold on until now, they might really have a chance of surviving. Since we've accepted this mission, why don't we do our best? Although we don't have the ability to fight against such a huge monster horde, we can still tease them. If we can distract them, we'll be able to charge forward. That makes sense. I agree. Some of the Guardian Corps members who were kind-hearted took the lead and voiced their opinions. Instantly, they were echoed by others. In such a situation, once someone started, the others felt embarrassed to take the reward for free and joined in. After a while, the Guardian Corps began to approach the monster horde from all directions. Keep digging, dig. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst the terrifying explosions, Chen Hao stood proudly, punching and kicking. His vigorous and pure true essence resisted the powerful attacks of the monster horde. At the same time, he ordered the members of Ao Tian. An hour. If the monsters were only in the primordial soul realm, they would not be afraid at all. No matter how many there were, they could not hurt Chen Hao. However, it was obvious that the monster commanders, who had human intelligence, joined in the attack after seeing that they could not defeat Chen Hao and the others. This directly put Chen Hao and the others in a desperate situation. The whole mountain had collapsed. Huyan Aobua and the others dug into the mountain and down with all their strength. At the same time, they set up powerful restrictions to resist the monster attacks. They took this opportunity to cover themselves. Even so, the terrifying turbulence of energy and the collapse of the mountain still made them extremely dangerous. The most dangerous ones were Chen Hao and Chen Shui, who were at the entrance of the cave, covering everyone. In less than an hour, Chen Shui was seriously injured and was driven back to the rear by Chen Hao. Chen Hao alone resisted the attacks of countless monsters. At this moment, it was not like fighting with Soul Fighter. Soft sword Dao and deflecting force were useless. He could only rely on his strong physical body and vigorous true essence to fight against the monsters. He did not want to kill them, he only wanted to hold on for as long as possible. Chen Hao knew that he was in a race against time. Once he could not hold on, then they would all be wiped out. As for the others, no one could resist such a violent and terrifying attack. The cave was constantly being dug deeper and deeper, and was constantly being destroyed. Even though Chen Hao was enduring the majority of the attacks, Huyan Aobua and the rest were also becoming more and more exhausted. Everyone had sunk into madness, fighting against the heavens for their lives. Bang! A monster at the peak of the initial stage of the blessed realm brazenly drilled into the mountain. The violent energy caused the cave to collapse again, and the location of the collapse happened to be the place Meng Xiao was guarding with all her strength. Puff! Meng Xiao spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Fuck your mother! Huyan Aobua, who was next to her, caught Meng Xiao. A huge bloody hole appeared on Meng Xiao's chest. Huyan Aobua, who was covered in blood, trembled with fear. Without any hesitation, he held Meng Xiao with one hand and quickly poured his remaining energy into her body with the other. He knew very well that if Meng Xiao was not treated in time, she would die. I'll do it. Huang Wenxiu immediately filled in the position of Meng Xiao and Huyan Aobua. He crazily urged his energy and stabbed out with his sword, blocking the blessed realm monster that had penetrated the mountain. Chapter 422. Captain Chen, we can't dig any further. Jiang Hai was second only to Chen Hao and Chen Shui among the group. He was the strongest, and his digging speed was also the fastest. However, at that moment he was covered in blood, and the web between his thumb and index finger was cracked. He held the sword tightly, but he could no longer break open the volcanic lava that was getting harder and harder. At that moment, they had already dug 1,000 feet into the bottom of the mountain. As they dug deeper, the volcanic lava became harder and harder, and his inner yuan became less and less. In the end, he was unable to break through the barrier at all. It was also at that moment that Jiang Hai felt that he was nearing the end of his life. In fact, it was not just Jiang Hai. Everyone present had fallen into a state of madness. They were fighting against the heavens, and they had no time to think about their physical condition. They broke through their limits again and again, but there was a limit to human strength. There's no need to dig anymore. Grit your teeth and guard the cave. There are 15 minutes left. Only 15 minutes. If we can hold on, we'll live. If we can't, we'll die. Bang, bang. Terrifying explosions rang out along with Chen Hao's cold voice. Chen Hao was bathed in blood, and there was not a single spot on his body that was unharmed. He was like an undying Vajra. It had been more than an hour, but he gave off the feeling that he was a war god that never stopped. He had endless energy, and the power of his punches and kicks did not weaken at all. Instead, as the monsters became stronger, they became even more violent. The blood of the monsters, his blood, had already stained his entire body. This time, it was different from the time when he encountered the beast tide. During the beast tide, he had lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, he had only lasted for half an hour, but the injuries he suffered were no less than the previous time. After all, the beast tide would gradually increase in strength. Moreover, the monsters back then could not be compared to the monsters now. How could he resist the violent attacks of the monsters in the primordial soul realm and the creation realm? Boss, Brother Hao, Commander Chen. As he spoke, several extremely powerful attacks once again forced Chen Hao into a dangerous situation. Chen Hao blocked most of them, but one of them slipped through the net and suddenly pierced through Chen Hao's right shoulder blade. One of his arms was directly blown away by the raging energy and forcibly separated from Chen Hao's body. Scram! Bang! Chen Hao did not seem to notice that his right arm had disappeared. He threw a punch with his left hand, and the vast and pure energy seemed to condense into a sharp sword light. With the will of the destructive sword, it directly blew up the head of the monster at the peak of the initial stage of the blessed realm. Don't worry about me, just hold on. Don't worry, even if you all die, I won't die. Seeing that everyone was about to rush out, Chen Hao stopped them. Guard the cave. We only need 15 minutes. Boss, let us fight to the death. Let us die in battle. Kill his mother. Kill as many as you can. Boss, I don't want to die like this. I want to die in battle. Everyone guard the cave. Listen to boss. The heavily injured Chen Shui gritted her teeth and stopped the madness of the others. She said telepathically, Brother Hao has the immortal bloodline. If we can hold on, we'll be of great help to Brother Hao. Oh my God, is this kid still human? He's only at the advanced stage of the primordial spirit realm, and yet he has such terrifying combat power. It's unbelievable. He's only 22 years old, and his cultivation level is not very outstanding. However, his combat power is absolutely terrifying. He's definitely a monstrous super genius. I hope they can hold on. These young people are not simple. At least, I've never seen such a cohesive group. Impossible. There are still 15 minutes left, and Chen Hao will lose his arm. What a pity. In the Alliance Hall's cabinet at supply point 160, a huge screen was showing Chen Hao's bloody figure in the battle. After receiving Proud Heaven's call for help and connecting to Chen Hao, all the workers in the Alliance stopped what they were doing and stared at the situation on the screen. No one expected Chen Hao and the others to hold on until now. They also did not expect Chen Hao, a cultivator at the late-stage primordial soul realm, to be able to display such terrifying combat power and tenacity. It could only be described as a miracle that they could hold on until now. Who sent the emergency call for help? Just as everyone was feeling sorry for Chen Hao and the others, a calm and old voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. Greetings, Guild Leader Meng. Everyone was shocked. They immediately looked at the old man who had appeared silently behind them. They bowed and made way for him. This old man was the guild leader of Supply Point 160, Meng Yichong. He was the highest leader here and had a high cultivation base. Guild Leader Meng, this is a third-level guardian group called Ao Tian. One of them is a disciple of Winter Plum Hall of Wuxia Immortal Palace. Their leader is Chen Hao, a leader of the younger generation from the eastern continent. There are also 2 other disciples, Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu of Winter Plum Hall of Wuxia Immortal Palace. Both of them are not members of Ao Tian. The person in charge of the cabinet hurriedly introduced them to the old man respectfully. What a fierce battle! Meng Yichong only took a glance and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. They have already held on for more than an hour. In another 15 minutes, the Guardian group will definitely rush over and attack. But I'm afraid, Guild leader, it would be a pity if these teenagers, especially Chen Hao and Chen Shui, died. The person in charge of the cabinet carefully looked at the guild leader whose eyes were fixed on the screen and said, "The teenager who is fighting is Chen Hao. He's 22 years old and is at the late-stage primordial soul realm. However, he has super strong combat power. Ordinary mid-stage blessed realm experts are no match for him. Once such a person grows up, I'm afraid he will become a top expert in the boundless continent." "Is that so? Did he join any forces?" Meng Yichong asked. "He's just from the eastern continent. That should be the case." The person in charge was not sure. After all, the information he had obtained was only superficial information. As for whether or not Chen Hao had joined any other major forces, he didn't know. It's a pity that they probably can't hold on any longer. "President, I'll go and take a look," Meng Yichong said after pondering for a while. After he finished speaking, he disappeared in front of everyone. Phew, we're saved. With guild leader Meng here, there's definitely no problem. I hope they can hold on for a few more minutes. Seeing this scene, the staff in the hall heaved a sigh of relief. Although they had nothing to do with Chen Hao and the others, after watching for more than an hour, the strength and cohesiveness displayed by Chen Hao and the others had infected them. Unfortunately, they did not have the ability to save Chen Hao. Even if the person in charge here was at the peak of the late-stage blessed realm, he could not do it. It was not a problem to tear through the void and fly there, but by the time they arrived, they would have been severely injured. How could they save someone when they were surrounded by hundreds of thousands of monsters? Moreover, blessed realm experts did not have the ability to break through the space barrier and fly with others. Only those who had surpassed the blessed realm and reached the human immortal realm would have the ability to save someone. Meng Yichong had such an ability. Time's almost up. Go, go, go. Kill. Brothers, let's go. Just as Meng Yichong tore through the space barrier and headed toward the place where Chen Hao and the others were, the thousands of guardians who had gathered together finally began to move at the same time. It had to be said that the army of hundreds of thousands of monsters made none of them dare to take risks. Moreover, if there was no huge reward in front of them, they would not have taken action until now. The reason was simple. The hunter would shoot the bird that stuck out. Who would dare to be the first to attack? They would probably become the target of the monster's siege. Now, the 2-hour time limit for the task was approaching. Everyone knew that they had to take action. Otherwise, they would not be able to reach the destination within the time limit and would lose the right to receive the task reward. Boom boom boom. The guardians from all directions used their magical powers and began to approach Chen Hao and the others in a frenzy almost at the same time. But even so, it did not reduce the pressure on Chen Hao and the others. In more than an hour, Chen Hao's ferocity had completely angered the monsters, especially those who had been killed by Chen Hao. They were even more fearless as they pressed toward Chen Hao. Monsters were like humans. In order to protect his brothers and sisters, Chen Hao hunted them crazily. However, the more he killed, the more ferocious the monster horde became. They were determined to kill Chen Hao. Otherwise, with countless cultivators surrounding them, how could these monster commanders, who possessed human intelligence, not leave? Get lost. Go to hell. Angry roars burst out from the gaps of Chen Hao's teeth. The pressure he had never felt before caused Chen Hao to fall into true madness. Intense pain came from his body, especially from his broken arm. It was like a sharp knife stabbing into his soul. However, this pain made the blood in Chen Hao's body surge and burn even more. It was like the stimulation of a secret technique, causing his potential and limits to break through again and again. There was no way out. At this moment, he was not only fighting for his own life. Behind him, there was also his beloved woman and his most cherished brothers and sisters. How could he fall? Chen Hao's hot-blooded and burning fighting spirit was like the final bloom of his life. His soul, his body, his true essence, and even his every cell had transformed into Chen Hao's strength. Every attack, every eruption, he was at his strongest. With the support of his obsession, his severed arm and blood-soaked body was filled with an aura that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. It wasn't because of the blood mist, but because of the essence energy that erupted from him. He looked like a burning flame, a flame of anger. Chen Hao did not know that in the depths of his mind, his soul palace had already become a destructive fire that filled the sky. It was as if his soul was burning. Chen Hao only had one obsession in his heart. That was to block all the monsters, block all the attacks. He did not realize that even though his vital essence had been exhausted, it was still endlessly growing at a terrifying speed. Recommended a new book by a friend, Scarlet Blood Soaring Clouds. His dantian was damaged and he could not cultivate. In his moment of despair, he coincidentally obtained a golden ball. From then on, he walked on a different path of cultivation. Cultivation? You have a dantian, but I have a peerless scarlet bone. Scarlet blood runs rampant under the heavens. Pills? I have countless pill recipes in my mind. I can refine all the best quality pills. With endless blood, I single-handedly forged the legend of the scarlet blood. If you like it, you can go and support me. Thank you. Chapter 423. In Chen Hao's mind, the mysterious existence, the spirit of the treasure hunter sword, Ito Ta, and the 5 godly beasts all fell into madness along with Chen Hao's madness. This wasn't the burning of life but the blooming of the hidden power of the soul. After 1 year, the space in Chen Hao's mind had expanded by more than 3 times. The immortal fruit tree had roots in the spiritual spring, and its branches and leaves covered the entire space. The mutated immortal fruits had turned golden and were shining brightly. They were constantly inhaling and exhaling large amounts of spiritual energy from the heaven and earth. The spiritual spring nourished the tree, and the tree nourished the spiritual spring. At this moment, the spiritual spring was surging, and the spirit tree was swaying. Even the stones in the origin space were emitting extremely pure origin energy. Under the full control of the mysterious existence, the spirit of the treasure hunter sword, and Ito Ta, they were constantly replenishing the energy that Chen Hao had consumed. Puff! In the narrow cave, although Chen Hao had blocked most of the most powerful attacks, he couldn't resist the crazy oppression of all the monsters. Unable to go any further, the group of people couldn't go any further. They struggled to hold on to the last bit of space and spat out mouthfuls of essence blood. Bastard, don't worry about me. Let me go. Meng Xiao, who had been severely injured and was on her last breath, struggled and cursed as Huyen Aobo continuously poured his vital essence into her body. She didn't want to be a burden to the others, but her struggles and cries were so powerless. Bitch, shut up. Huyen Aobo cursed with blood spurting out of his mouth. Boss said that he doesn't want any of us to die. If we die, we die together. Before I die, you can't die even if you want to. Hold on. Boss is already. What reason do we have not to hold on? The first king roared furiously, and his body emitted beams of golden light. An extremely horrifying aura of an ancient ferocious beast surged out of his body violently. In an instant, his huge body seemed to have a momentary recovery of consciousness. Billowing energy gushed out of his body and resisted the shrinking cave. Hold on. Fuck them. Good heavens. The Mad Demon Realm. It's the legendary Mad Demon Realm. No one knew that, at some point, an old man had been hiding in the air above the countless flying beasts. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes as he paid attention to the actions of Chen Hao and the others. However, he did not make a move. If I were to make a move, I would naturally be able to save them. However, at this moment, every single one of them has fallen into the legendary state of madness. It is something that can only be chanced upon by luck. The Berserk Demon Realm was a realm that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. It would only appear when one was on the verge of death or when one's life was in great danger. Furthermore, one had to break through one's own limits time and time again before they could appear. How difficult was that? Once one encountered a life and death crisis, it meant that one was on the brink of death. Breaking through one's limits once meant that there were 2 outcomes. One was to survive the danger, and the other was to die. No matter which one it was impossible to encounter the legendary demonic realm. not to mention breaking through one's limits time and time again. One could imagine how rare it was to enter the berserk devil realm. Once a cultivator entered this state, their soul, physical body, and even most of their innate comprehension would be greatly improved. In this state, the cultivator would forget about life and death, forget about everything. The only thing that supported them was the obsession to survive. Burning their physical body, burning their soul, and burning themselves. Once they successfully survived the danger, the cultivator's soul, will, and physical body would all be improved tremendously. This was an effect that no immortal pill or spiritual medicine had. It was even rarer and more precious than the epiphany that cultivators yearned for in their dreams. This old man was the Alliance president of the 160th Supply Station, Meng Yichong, who had rushed over in a few minutes. Even though he was at the peak of the human immortal stage, his eyes were filled with envy and jealousy as he looked at Chen Hao and the others. I'll make a move when they can't hold on any longer. Otherwise, it would be a pity. All of them are good seedlings, especially this Chen Hao. Meng Yichong's divine consciousness had already locked onto Chen Hao from afar. At this moment, the most dangerous person was Chen Hao. Once something happened to Chen Hao, he would have to make a move. Otherwise, everyone would die. Suddenly, Meng Yichong's expression revealed a hint of shock as he looked into the distance. Beep, beep, beep. In an instant, the guardian tokens of countless cultivators began to vibrate violently. The cultivators who were sprinting toward Chen Hao and the others with all their might, trying to reach Chen Hao's location within the time limit set by the mission, were all shocked. They did not need to connect their tokens to know what was happening. Retreat! Retreat! The beast tide is here. Cries of alarm rang out. Countless cultivators' expressions changed drastically, and they lost their composure. A beast tide. No one had expected a beast tide to break out at this moment. In the face of a beast tide, without the protection of the supply station's boundary, not to mention the primordial spirit realm and half-step to the manifestation realm, even the middle and late manifestation realm experts would die without a trace. In particular, they were quite far away from the supply station at this moment. Kacha, the weather changed and heaven and earth shook. Terrifying bolts of lightning suddenly appeared in the void. Endless monsters swarmed out from the pitch-black cracks in space. They were so dense that they blotted out the sky like locusts. Do the heavens want me to die? Chen Hao, who had never despaired, sensed the frequency of the token's vibration and saw the strange phenomenon that suddenly appeared in the sky. For the first time, a sense of powerlessness and despair rose in him. Power. He could only blame himself for being too weak. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Boom, 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 boom. At this moment, waves of destructive energy suddenly appeared above Chen Hao. Before Chen Hao could react, the horde of monsters within a radius of 10,000 feet was reduced to dust by the sudden appearance of this terrifying power. Condense. Shik. The resplendent golden light was like a long river that connected the heavens and the earth. It poured down from the 9 heavens and transformed into a screen of light. With Chen Hao as the core, it condensed into an incomparably powerful spirit formation seal. Chen Hao, I am the Alliance leader of the Supply Station Alliance, Meng Yichong. This is all I can help you with. The beast tide has broken out, and I am also in danger. I can't save you. This boundary can last for 4 hours, provided that no monster commanders above manifestation realm arrive. If an elite arrives in time, you will still have hope. As for the rest, you can only leave it to fate. I'm sorry, an old voice with a hint of apology echoed in Chen Hao and the others' ears before it gradually faded into the distance. For hours, huh? Chen Hao, who had sunk into despair for the first time, mumbled. He seemed to have become a little numb. Boss, the pressure on everyone disappeared swiftly. They were also shocked by the sudden appearance of the monster horde and the elite who had only left behind a single sentence. However, they stepped out of the cave with calm expressions. Huyen Aobo carried Meng Xiao, who had almost fainted but was holding on with great difficulty. Leng Ningle's face was covered in blood and tears. She carried her sister, who was on the verge of death. The first king, Jing Tianggeng, Bailey Lianxing, and Lin Hao, the the three bachelors supported each other. Bai Xiaomei and Gao Dezhuang, Zhang Rongrong and Tan Hui were also badly injured. When he heard the group's shouts, Chen Hao slowly swept his gaze over the faces covered in blood and wounds. Pain surged in his heart. Aside from Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu, all of them were brothers and sisters who had followed him for a year. All of them carried the hopes and dreams of their families, but now, they died before they could achieve anything. And all of this was caused by him. If he had not wanted to come here, would any of his brothers and sisters have dared to come? Who would have come? It's my fault. For the first time, Chen Hao, who had never lowered his head and was proud, apologized in front of his brothers and sisters. He mocked himself in his heart. What's the use of apologizing? Boss, what are you talking about? Even if we die, we'll die with a bang. I have wine here, boss, let's drink to our heart's content. In the next life, we'll still be brothers. Huyan Aobua hugged Meng Xiao, who was struggling between sleep and consciousness, and said while instilling energy into her. A jar of good wine appeared in front of everyone, and there was also a big bowl. Second brother, for the first time, I don't think you're trying to please boss. Zhang Rongrong was covered in blood, but it still couldn't hide the paleness of his face. Boss, life and death are predestined. I, the first king, can die with boss and all of my brothers and sisters. I have no regrets in this life. The magnificent first emperor's eyes flickered as he spoke in a trembling voice. He opened the jar of wine and placed it in front of Chen Hao. Boss, there's a legend in the cultivation world. If brothers are willing to live and die together, they will be able to fulfill the blood oath. Our bloodlines will be connected, and even if our primordial spirits are destroyed, we will still be together in our next life after we reincarnate. Boss, please drip your blood. But I, Chen Hao, won't say any pretentious words. Since we are brothers and sisters, we will meet again in the next life. To everyone's surprise, Chen Hao directly forced out a stream of blood essence from his heart and poured it into the jar of wine. This was the highest level of oath ceremony in the cultivation world. Only brothers and sisters who could go through thick and thin together would swear an oath with their blood essence. When the first king looked at Chen Shui gently walked to Chen Hao's side and held his only remaining arm. At this moment, she appeared abnormally calm. Before the first king could speak, she also forced out an arrow of blood from her heart. Soon after, she softly said, "Lei, all of you come." Leng Ning Li's face was covered in tears. She hugged her sister who was hanging on by a thread. After hearing Chen Shui's words, her expression changed slightly and she said, Sister Chen, let us do it. Are you happy? Lei is very happy. God-grandfather will no longer be God-grandfather. Lei knows that sister is also very happy. Sister, you have to hold on. We will die together. We will always be twins. Just use my blood essence. But Lei hopes that in the next life, I will be the older sister and you will be the younger sister. I don't want you to always give in to me, and I don't want you to die for me. Qidian has released an annual review. You can vote under the title of the book on Proud Heaven's homepage. VIP accounts have free tickets. Brothers and sisters who support Dark Mountain, please vote. Vote for this year's work, thank you. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for it on Qidian.com. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 424. Just as Leng Ning forced out a stream of blood, what surprised everyone was that Leng Ning Huan, who only had a single breath left, actually smiled and forced out a stream of blood as well. She wanted to speak, but her words were blocked by the blood that was gushing out of her mouth. She couldn't make a sound and the blood that was gushing out contained pieces of her internal organs. Chen Hao directly came in front of the sisters and pressed one of his arms on Leng Ning Huan's dantian. Pure energy slowly integrated into Leng Ning Huan's body. The first king carried the wine jar in front of Huyan Aobua. Huyan Aobua looked at Chen Shui and then looked at Chen Hao. Seeing that the two didn't have any intentions, he braced himself and once again poured the remaining energy into Meng Xiao. He had never been so close to a woman, and he never wanted to be close to a woman. Even if he wanted to chase a beauty, It was just a disguise. At this moment, looking at the dying Meng Xiao in his arms, Huyen Aobo didn't feel any disgust. On the contrary, he felt a kind of peace and steadiness. Huyen Aobo had a secret, and even if he died, he would take it away with him. That is, he was abnormal, and the one he liked was not a woman. This kind of mentality appeared when he was very, very young. The root of it all was Meng Xiao, his fiancée. When he was 4 years old, he met Meng Xiao at a family banquet. He knew that she was his fiancée. Although he didn't understand the meaning of fiancé at that time, he felt very close to her. However, he was beaten black and blue by the rude and unreasonable Meng Xiao and a group of girls. She even stripped him naked and played with his little bird. It was also from that time that women became a shadow in his heart. I will follow you. Meng Xiao looked at Chen Hao, Chen Shui, and the sisters before finally looking at Huyen Aobo. Her pale face glowed with a touch of red as she weakly said, I only admire, boss. I am your fiancé as long as we don't break off the engagement. We are, what are you talking about? I simply, you compare everything to me, trying to find ways to attack me, saying I'm ugly, saying I'm small here, small there, fuck. It's you who's competing with me, okay? Every time the family gatherings, you always embarrass me. Huyen Aobo's face turned red as he stuttered. Forget it, we're going to die anyway, what's the point of saying such nonsense? Puff. Huyen Aobo blushed as he directly poured his heart's blood essence into the wine jar. You help me? Meng Xiao whispered. Huyen Aobo did not hesitate and directly urged his energy to force out Meng Xiao's essence blood. Then, the first king and the others offered up their blood essence according to the ranking. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement. They disregarded life and death and completely ignored the densely packed and crazily roaring monsters outside the seal. Commander Chen. Boss, can we, after everyone offered up their blood essence, Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu couldn't help but ask. He even changed the way he addressed her. Boss, we no longer have any improper thoughts about junior sister, sister-in-law. We also want a boss like you, a brother like you. Boss, since we're going to die, let's take them in. At least we fought together, the two of them are not bad. Gao Dezhuang said. Yeah, without the two of them I would have already. Lin Hao also pleaded. Obviously, after a life and death battle, everyone's feelings towards Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu had changed. Being able to die together is also a kind of fate. Hurry up. After drinking, we will use all our strength to recover. Even if we die, we have to kill to our heart's content. Chen Hao said. There was something that Chen Hao did not say. If the two of them could not do it, how could they have survived until now? Okay. Puff. 2 huge blood arrows sprayed out. Them. Little 8, little 9, the heart's blood essence. Although we're going to die soon, there's no need to use so much, right? It will affect the taste of the wine. Bailey Lianxing saw Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu spit out a large amount of blood essence and immediately shouted. It caused everyone to laugh out loud. Drink. Voila! Enveloped by the first king's energy, the wine jug immediately split into blood-red wine arrows that accurately entered everyone's mouths. Let's start. Start? Boss, when do we start? Do you still remember what I told you? What? As long as you have one breath left, you can't give up. Just now, even I gave up. But now, I realize that I still have a lot of things to do and a lot of unfulfilled wishes. I can't die. You guys can't either. Let's not talk nonsense. All of you, stay alert. Swallow these first. Swoosh. Golden fruits that emitted a tempting fragrance appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Without needing to look carefully, everyone could feel how majestic and pure the heaven and earth spiritual energy contained in these golden fruits was. What was more shocking was that it contained a vast amount of life essence. Mutated panther fruit. Boss, what is this? Although it's not a healing elixir, it should be useful. Don't ask too much. Swallow it. After the one-armed Chen Hao finished speaking, he took the lead and stepped into the cave that was almost filled to the brim. He did not have a treasure sword, and only relied on his bare hand. Suddenly he took out a small knife. There was no energy fluctuation around him, but in an instant, pieces of lava flew out. The hard lava that Jiang Hai and the others could not do anything to, under Chen Hao's small knife, was like tofu, flying out neatly, piece by piece. This, except for Qin Shui, everyone was dumbfounded. In terms of energy consumption and injuries, who was the one who suffered the most? Without a doubt, it was Chen Hao. However, at this moment, in just a few minutes, Chen Hao seemed to be fine except for his broken arm. He actually used such a strange method to break open the lava. The cave became deeper and deeper at an astonishing speed. However, the entrance became extremely small and could only fit one person. Moreover, it seemed to be made according to the first king, who was the largest among them. If it was bigger, it wouldn't be able to fit in. 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, everyone's eyes were fixed on it. One by one, they swallowed the unknown golden fruit and looked at the huge rocks that flew out. 3,000 feet, 4,000 feet, Chen Hao's digging speed finally slowed down. "Come in," Chen Hao ordered. Chen Shui and the others looked at each other. Without wasting any time, they jumped into the cave one by one and slid down like children's shuttles. When everyone had just entered the cave, the boulders outside, under the control of a powerful divine sense, flew in one after another and filled the cave again, causing the cave to become pitch black. "Boss, what are you doing?" "Ah, what a strong medicinal effect." Just as Huyen Aobo finished his question, a vigorous and pure life aura rose up from his body. His almost exhausted essence, qi and spirit were recovering at an inconceivable speed. Even the recovery speed of his true essence was multiplied. 4 hours should be enough for us to recover to our peak state. If we enter the beast tide, we will definitely die. But if we hide in here, we still have a chance of survival. As long as we can hold on long enough, Chen Hao said. "All of you go into the independent caves that I have dug and recover to your peak state. Then follow me in. If you haven't recovered in 3 hours, come out and follow me. Go." "Boss, this is our last hope. In front of you, I no longer have any secrets." While more than 10 streams of spirit spring water suddenly gushed out from between Chen Hao's eyebrows. In an instant, it poured into more than 10 independent small caves. This is spirit spring water, a very pure and high-grade spirit spring water. When your physical body is completely in contact with the spirit spring water, your recovery speed will increase by several times. "Boss, what about you?" "Me? I only need a quarter of an hour to recover to my peak state. Don't worry about me. Hurry up, don't waste time." After Chen Hao finished speaking, he began to dig again. The extremely hard lava immediately broke open again. Other than Qin Shui, Jiang Hai, and Huang Wenxiu, who could vaguely guess what was going on, no one knew how Chen Hao did it. In fact, Qin Shui could do it as well, but her injuries were too serious. Merging into the state of all things in the world required a lot of mental energy, and she did not have the mental energy to waste it at the moment. Time passed by, and Chen Hao's digging speed became slower and slower. Even he did not expect that the lava here would be so strange. The deeper he went, the harder the lava became, and the faster it grew. Even if he pushed his carving skill to the limit, he could not quickly capture the tracks of the lava's veins. It was not that the tracks of the lava's veins were changing too quickly, but that they were too fine. Great. Just the hardness of the lava alone is probably comparable to a middle-grade spirit weapon. Even though it had become difficult, Chen Hao became more and more excited. What did this mean? It meant that the cave's natural resistance would become stronger and stronger. As long as he dug deep enough, even monsters in the Blessed Realm would find it extremely difficult to destroy their cave. In this way, he would waste even more time, and what Chen Hao needed was time. When the beast horde erupted, experts from all walks of life would rush over to help. Once the beast horde retreated, they would be able to survive. 2 hours later, Chen Hao had dug 10,000 feet deep. At this point, he could no longer go any deeper. The entire cave was filled with terrifying heat. If a normal person came here, they would definitely be turned into ashes in an instant. Even if Huyen Aobo and the others came here, they would have to rely on their own cultivation to withstand the heat. But Chen Hao was not afraid at all. His physical body had been through the phoenix's nirvana and the tempering of the vermilion bird's heavenly fire, so he did not feel any discomfort from the high temperature. The only thing he felt was the heat. Phew, Chen Hao let out a long breath. After expanding the cave to a size that could easily accommodate more than 10 people, he finally stopped digging. Chapter 425. Right now, the toughness of the lava alone is comparable to that of a high-grade spirit artifact. Even commander-level monsters in the middle stage or later stage of Blessed Realm will have to spend a lot of effort to break through the lava. Once the monster horde erupts, its main target will be the supply station. The monsters here will definitely be under the command of the monster commanders that came from the other world. However, I've killed so many monsters, so these beasts will definitely not give up on this place. When he thought of this, Chen Hao's mind entered his mind and he said, "Old God, have you prepared the materials?" "I've prepared them a long time ago. We can start setting them up now," the mysterious existence said. Chen Hao, who had originally been in despair, did not have any way to survive. As for digging deeper, Chen Hao did not think that it was a solution. After all, no matter how deep they dug, they would not be able to withstand the damage from the monster horde. Forget about the monster horde that had already erupted. Even if there was no monster horde, the hundreds of thousands of monsters that surrounded them could easily break through the cave and kill them. Since they had already reached this stage, instead of wasting energy digging a hole, it would be better for them to recover peacefully and wait for the seal Meng Yichong had set up to disappear. Then, they would fight to their heart's content and die happily. After all, aside from him, everyone else, including Chen Shui, was already heavily injured. Even if he could dig deeper, how long could the others hide? Being killed in the cave like a coward was not what he wanted, and neither was it what his brothers and sisters wanted. Fortunately, the old god had reminded him. The lava formation here was definitely not an ordinary formation. It was a million-year-old volcanic lava vein. The deeper it went, the harder it became, and it became several times stronger. It was completely formed by the erupting volcanic lava. Like the deep sea, the deeper it went, the stronger the pressure. The higher the pressure, the higher the density and strength of the solid lava. After millions of years of condensation, it had absorbed a lot of spiritual energy, especially fire attribute energy. When the old god integrated a mysterious protective formation into Chen Hao's mind, Chen Hao's body suddenly flew quickly in the narrow space. A large number of primordial crystal stones and precious stones, obtained from the origin space, were constantly embedded in the cave walls in Chen Hao's hands. More than 10 minutes later, when the formation was successfully set up, the entire cave shone with a faint milky white light. A powerful protective seal completely protected the narrow cave. Phew! It's done! Old God, how strong can it be now? Monsters that are not at the peak of the late stage of the Blessed Realm will not be able to break it. This is also one of the phaseless formations, called the phaseless sky-sealing formation. Not only does it have a powerful protective ability, it can also block all auras. Even half-step human immortals or human immortals can't sense your existence. That's good. Chen Hao temporarily stopped the operation of the formation and stepped into an independent cave that he had just dug out. With its splash, the spirit spring water filled a pool of 20 feet in length and width, and he jumped into it. With the recovery ability of my immortal bloodline, I'm afraid it will take at least half a month to regrow a severed arm. I didn't expect that one day I could become Hero Yanghua. Although the crisis was not over, Chen Hao's mind was much more relaxed. A smile appeared on his handsome face, and he thought of the classic martial arts characters on Earth. Taking a deep breath, he, who was now naked, immediately entered into a state of cultivation and recovery without any distractions. Sizzle! In a moment, the spiritual spring surrounding Chen Hao's body rolled and made a strange sound. In the recitation of the primary outline of the Great Tao, Chen Hao clearly felt that his recovery speed had reached an unprecedented speed. His spirit, body, and soul were like dry land that had encountered rain and dew, crazily absorbing the energy in the spiritual spring. What's going on? Even Chen Hao couldn't figure out when his recovery speed reached such a level. What made Chen Hao faintly excited was that he, who was completely immersed in cultivation, clearly felt that his soul had become even more crystalline and translucent, and the degree of compatibility with his body had even reached an unprecedented height. Could it be that this battle that surpassed the limit allowed my soul and body to have an amazing improvement? It must be. At the same time, Chen Shui, Huyan Aobo, and the others who were in the independent cave above were also filled with astonishment. They were the same as Chen Hao. No matter what, they never thought that their recovery ability would actually be several times stronger than before. At the same time, they also felt that their souls seemed to have been purified and had received a huge improvement. Everyone was sure that as long as they calmed down and consolidated for a few days, they would definitely be able to break through their own realm. They didn't know that this was brought about by the legendary Mad Demon realm, who, after an hour, Chen Shui had basically recovered to her peak state. But her graceful and delicate body jumped out of the pool with crystal-clear spirit spring water droplets. Although her jade-like body was still covered with wounds of various sizes, her white jade-like skin was white with a hint of red. She was like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water. Nothing could be more beautiful. The mutated immortal fruit and the spirit spring are becoming more and more magical. I really don't know how he did it. Chen Shui curled her lips, and a trace of doubt and excitement flashed in her beautiful eyes. The more she learned about Chen Hao, the more she felt that he was unfathomable. After quickly putting on her clothes, Chen Shui released a stream of energy and collected the remaining spirit spring water. Although most of the energy had been absorbed, it was still spirit spring water. It could be sold at a high price in the cultivation world. Immediately after, everyone walked out of the independent cave one by one. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement. Although no one had recovered to their peak state and the heavy injuries on their bodies had not completely healed, their spirits and appearances were completely new. What is this? When everyone once again went deep into the space where Chen Hao was, they immediately revealed a surprised expression. The bottom of the cave was circular, and its diameter was only 100 feet. However, the cave was filled with a faint seven-colored light. There was no need to carefully sense it at all. They could feel that the air was filled with pure energy of various attributes. These energies were emitted by the various colored crystals embedded in the walls of the cave. This should be set up by the boss, right? To think that we always thought that the boss was poor. If we took these crystals out to sell, how much could they be sold for? These crystals are definitely top-notch materials for refining equipment. 108 crystals. Let's not talk about these crystals. The golden fruit and the spirit spring that the boss gave us just now, which one of them didn't have a sky-high price? I feel that the golden fruit is a spirit treasure of heaven and earth that can increase one's lifespan by dozens of years. Look, it has only been a little more than 2 hours, and our essence, energy, and spirit have completely recovered. If it weren't for our heavy injuries, we would have already returned to our peak state. Everyone looked at the layout of the cave and was a little dumbfounded. Only Chen Shui could maintain her composure. This was not a secret to her. Maybe we really won't die. Boss used such a precious item to set up a formation. How strong do you think it will be? Bailey Lianqing said. The temperature here is 100 times higher than the outside world. Look at this lava. It's clearly a fire attribute high-grade mineral vein. Little 8, why don't you test the hardness? Huyan Aobo looked at Jiang Hai and said. Although Chen Shui's cultivation was the highest among them, Huyan Aobo did not dare to order his sister-in-law around. He could only find the strongest Jiang Hai. When Jiang Hai heard Huyan Aobo's words, he was a little depressed. After all, he was an expert second only to Chen Hao and Chen Shui. However, he could only be ranked 8th. But he could only accept it, there's no need to test it. I can't even move the ones above, not to mention this place. Just based on my feeling, the hardness of this lava is probably comparable to a middle grade or even a high grade spirit treasure. With the addition of the boss's formation, we might really be able to survive. That's right. The hardness of this lava is comparable to a high grade spirit treasure. But you guys are too optimistic? At this moment, the one-armed hero Chen Hao suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Except for one arm, he looked refreshed and energetic. There was no sign of any injury at all. This formation is also one of the phaseless formations, the major phaseless sky ceiling formation. It has an extremely strong defensive ability and can completely conceal our presence. But the consumption is astonishing. Give us all your primal crystal stones. We might be trapped here for many days. The number of primal crystal stones will determine how long our formation can last. And this is without the help of the peak of the late stage of the Blessed Realm and the half-step human celestial realm monster commanders. The situation is not optimistic. Without any hesitation, everyone handed over their storage rings one by one. They did not hide anything. Little Snow, Huan, Lele and I will be in one group. Aobua, Xiyao, Shiwang, Tiangang, Lianqing, Lin Hao, you six will be in the second group. Jiang Hai, Huang Wenshu, Dezhuang, Xiaomei Rong, Xiaohui, you six will be in the third group. The three of us will take turns to guard, just in case. You two groups will try your best to heal your injuries. Little Snow, Huan, Lele, you also try your best to recover. For the time being, I can do it alone. Yes. When it was almost 4 hours, Chen Hao activated the formation. Chen Hao's powerful soul perception had already sensed the situation in the outside world. Although Meng Yichong had said that his protective seal could last for 4 hours, it had not even been 4 hours yet, but it was already on the verge of collapse. The monsters outside the seal were far more powerful than expected. Moreover, they were more advanced than when they were fighting. What did this mean? It meant that the level of this monster tide was probably very terrifying. Outside the cave, the terrifying monster tide came in waves. Countless cultivators who did not manage to escape in time became the targets of the monsters. Some cultivators who were lucky enough to escape from the monsters' encirclement desperately fled to the supply point. Chapter 426. In the wilderness, even a man celestial like Meng Yichong could only run when encountering a level 9 beast tide. It wasn't that he didn't want to save Chen Hao and the others, but he didn't have the ability to do so. Using half of his true essence to condense a protective seal that could last for 4 hours for Chen Hao and the others was already the limit of what he could do. Meng Yichong flew at a low altitude like a bolt of lightning. He had to quickly dodge when the beasts arrived. He had no choice. When the beast tide arrived, even he didn't dare to tear the void to fly. This was because the space was unstable at this moment. Not to mention the beasts that were teleported in the chaotic space, even the terrifying lightning could take his life. Meng Yichong fled toward the supply station while using the president's authority to connect to the communication hall of the 160th supply station. Beep beep beep. The staff of the 160th supply station had been monitoring the situation of Chen Hao and the others. Even they didn't expect that the beast tide would erupt without any warning. It's the president. Quickly connect. Immediately send a message to the headquarters in Dian City. The beast tide is estimated to be level 9, but it might be level 10 or even higher. Requesting reinforcements. Meng Yichong's figure appeared on the huge screen as he spoke urgently. Also, specifically notify Wuxia Immortal Palace. Emphasize the situation of the 3 direct disciples of Wuxia Immortal Palace in Ao Tianzhong. They can only hold on for less than 4 hours. Also, count all the direct disciples of the major factions who are training in our supply station and notify them together. This was something that the supply station alliance had to do every time a beast tide broke out. First, it was to attach importance to the genius disciples of the major factions. Second, it was because these genius disciples could make the experts of the major factions come to help as soon as possible. After all, the terror of the beast tide was unimaginable. It was impossible to accurately estimate the level of the beast tide. Once the reinforcements didn't arrive in time, the entire supply station would be crushed into powder by the beast tide army. Wuxia Immortal Palace, Cold Plum Hall. Report. A hurried and loud shout suddenly came and interrupted the cultivation of the nameless old man. It was the palace master of Cold Plum Hall, Venerable Immortal Han Mei. Why are you so flustered? Venerable Han Mei frowned. His aura seemed extremely ethereal. Even though he was right in front of Zhang Xian, it was as if he was immersed in another world, giving off an unreal feeling. At this moment, she was the real her. In the past, when she was in the secular world and the Eastern continent, she had sealed her cultivation base. Even the mysterious existence in Qinhao's mind couldn't know her true strength. Firstly, the mysterious existence did not dare to probe. Secondly, even if he probed, he would not be able to find out anything. This was because his perception ability was determined by the improvement of Qinhao's cultivation and the degree of fusion with him. Even when immortal Venerable Han Mei stripped his memories, Old God was wrong. Hall Master, I've just received a message from the communication headquarters of the Immortal Palace. Chen Shui, Jiang Hai, and Huang Wenxiu, the direct disciples of the younger generation of the Immortal Palace, have encountered a beast tide of level 9 or even level 10 in the wilderness of the number 160 supply station of the Great Yen City. You only have 4 hours to obtain the supply station's President Protection Seal. Please make your decision, Hall Master. What? Immortal Venerable Han Mei's expression changed slightly. She was surprised, but she immediately calmed down and said, immediately inform the Deputy Hall Master to arrange for people to gather all the outstanding disciples and creation realm experts of the younger generation to help them. I'll take my leave first. Immortal Venerable Han Mei took a step forward. There was a slight fluctuation in the space, and she directly disappeared from the hall. At the same time, the Hall Masters of the Wuji Immortal Palace, Hall Master Yunwei, and the other Hall Masters who were relatively close to the Great Yen City received the message from the communication headquarters of the Immortal Palace. This was also the news that must be notified every time there was a beast tide. It was convenient for the hall to arrange for the support and training of the disciples. Number 160 supply station of the Great Yen City, a beast tide of level 9? The graceful Immortal Venerable Yunwei looked calm when she received the news. However, she immediately thought of something and said inwardly, Chen Hao, that little guy, seems to have entered the Great Yen City. Chen Shui also followed him the day before yesterday. They shouldn't be at the number 160 supply station, right? Immortal Venerable Yunwei was the female Immortal Venerable who hosted the Eastern Continent's Immortal Dao Sect exchange competition. She was also the master of Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tantai Lian. Regardless, let's go and take a look. Thinking of this, Immortal Venerable Yunwei looked at the disciple who came to report and said, immediately inform the Vice Hall Master to arrange for the disciples to go and train. Arrange for Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tantai Lian to go as well? Yes, Hall Master. The news that Hall Master Yunwei and the other halls received naturally didn't mention Chen Shui, Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, and the others. However, Fairy Yunwei favored her 3 precious disciples. Especially in the past 2 years, their progress could be described as monstrous. The more she looked at them, the more she liked them. Among the 3, Helian Wuzi exceeded her imagination. She caught up with Xia Yuyu in terms of cultivation realm, and her combat strength was even higher than Xia Yuyu's. She also found out the reason, and that was the power of reincarnation. The weakest among the 3 was still Tantai Lian, but the difference wasn't big. Perhaps because she was stimulated by Helian Wuzi and Xia Yu, Tantai Lian's cultivation and training were crazier and more terrifying. She desperately chased after the two's footsteps. Of course, Immortal Venerable Yunwei knew the reason, and this situation was what she wanted to see. If Chen Hao and the others are at the 160th supply station, I think Immortal Venerable Han Mei should have received more specific news. However, I still have to go and take a look. This little guy's future achievements are limitless. My 3 disciples can't be compared to her disciple, daughter, Qi. A moment later, Fairy Yunwei also disappeared from the palace. In fact, she didn't only do it for her disciples, but also for herself to form a good relationship with Chen Hao. She, who had been paying attention to Chen Hao, was very clear that as long as Chen Hao could smoothly grow, he would be a monstrous genius who could definitely step into the ranks of the top experts in the boundless continent. Karma was a cycle, and luck was connected. The higher the cultivation, the more they cared. This was because they understood the benefits of forming a good relationship with a future powerhouse in advance. It was also because of this that Meng Yichong, the president of the 160th supply station, did not hesitate to use half of his quintessential essence to condense a protective seal for Chen Hao and the others in a dangerous situation. Limitless Demon Palace's Heartbroken Hall, which was where Soul Fighter was, also received the news. However, even if they didn't receive the news, the Heartbroken Hall Master had already rushed over with a group of Manifestation Realm experts. The reason was very simple. Although Soul Fighter's junior brothers and sisters were much inferior to Soul Fighter, they were still the younger generation's genius disciples of Heartbroken Hall. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been allowed to follow Soul Fighter out to train. However, their longevity tablets shattered at almost the same time. Needless to say, it was obvious that Soul Fighter and the others were in big trouble. Soul Fighter was the only one left alive. Who else would dare to attack the disciples of Limitless Demon Palace? The Heartbroken Hall Master might not be able to participate in the battle between those below Manifestation Realm, but he definitely couldn't let anything happen to the strongest person of the younger generation in Heartbroken Hall. If it was a monster horde, then it would be fine. But if it was really Limitless Immortal Palace, Limitless Demon Palace, or some other great faction, then the Manifestation Realm experts he brought with him would let the other party know just how blind he was. We're lucky. We're not fated to die. A level 10 monster horde is too terrifying. Who knows how many people will die outside? Isn't that so? It's all thanks to junior brother Yin's good fortune. If junior sister wasn't injured, we might have died after resting for a day. Some of the cultivators on the tall walls of the supply station looked at the surging and terrifying monster horde and spoke with lingering fear. At that moment, those who were able to stand on the walls were those who weren't fated to die. They were extremely lucky and didn't go out to train today. It had only been an hour since the start of the monster horde, and it was estimated to be a level 10 monster horde. The monsters that surrounded them might not be very powerful, but they were becoming stronger too quickly, and their numbers were increasing too quickly. Based on their experience, the monster horde this time would definitely reach level 10. Some of the cultivators were fighting madly outside the supply station and welcoming the cultivators who were lucky enough to escape. Those who were heavily injured were protected while they waited for the barrier around the supply station to be activated. During a monster horde, the barrier could only be activated at certain times. Once they left, they had to last until the next time the barrier was activated before they could enter again. This was the same situation as when Chen Hao ran into the monster horde in Heavenly Mist City. I am the head disciple of Limitless Demon Palace's Heartbroken Hall, Soul Fighter. Whoever saves me will be rewarded generously. You will be rewarded generously. At that moment, a bloody figure covered in terrifying wounds appeared in the monster horde 100 miles away from the supply station. He cried for help from afar. Even though this person had torn through the void and escaped a long distance away, he didn't expect the monster horde to erupt so quickly. He was confident that he could rush back to the supply station in time, but now, 100 miles. It was only 100 miles, but he felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. His true origin was almost depleted, and his body was heavily injured. What was even more tragic was that the superior-grade puppet substitute he relied on to save his life had also been destroyed by Chen Hao and Qin Shui's terrifying attacks. Otherwise, he would have only needed to activate the puppet substitute to cross the 100 miles and reach the bottom of the city wall. Soul Fighter? Isn't that the expert ranked 36th on the Pagoda Monument? He's only in the initial stage of the Blessed Realm, but he suppressed countless experts in the middle stage of the Blessed Realm. He's a monstrous genius. If we can save him, it'll be good to befriend him. Don't think about it. It's 100 miles away, and we won't be able to return even if we rush over. We're right beside the city wall, and we're all in danger. Don't be distracted and fight with all your might. Some of the cultivators who were fighting near the city wall were discussing. Chapter 427. Although many people wanted to save him, They could only give up when they saw the overwhelming number of monsters. They could save him, but only if they had the ability to survive. Unless Soul Fighter could rush over on his own, no one dared to save him. After all, the beast tide had just begun. The ones fighting outside were all guards led by early-stage and mid-stage creation realm experts. This was also one of the rules after the beast tide, to train the cultivators. A level 10 beast tide was very powerful even at the beginning. The protective barrier here could only be activated for 2 hours. Every 2 hours, someone had to be replaced. Otherwise, not many people could survive. There was only an hour left. It was already a problem to go back and forth from a distance of 100 miles, not to mention that the number of monsters was still increasing rapidly. Who would dare to save him? Just as Soul Fighter was calling for help, rays of light flashed out from the transportation portal at the supply depot's core. Figures appeared in the supply depot. The leader of the group had just appeared when a powerful telepathic connection spread out. "Oh, Soul Fighter is nearby. Fortunately, the person said. Clearly, this person had a special connection with Soul Fighter. Otherwise, no matter how high his cultivation was, he would not be able to pass through the seal and capture Soul Fighter's aura in the chaotic beast tide. Welcome, Demon Venerable. The Alliance members at the entrance of the transportation portal immediately bowed respectfully when they saw the person who had arrived. How's the situation outside the station? The beast tide is level 9, right? The person asked. The person who had arrived was the Limitless Demon Palace's heartbroken hall master, Fan Suixin. On the way, he had received news that a beast tide had broken out at the 160th supply depot in Dian City. Demon Venerable, the beast tide has been re-estimated to be level 10, a staff member said respectfully. Level 10? Let's go and take a look. After Fan Suixin finished speaking, he disappeared in a flash. When he appeared again, he was already on the city wall. Welcome, Demon Venerable. The moment the person appeared, all the cultivators, whether they knew him or not, bowed respectfully. Their eyes were filled with respect and fear as they looked at the person who had arrived. Meng Yichong, the leader of the Supply Depot Alliance, received the message from the transportation portal staff immediately and quickly went to Fan Suixin. What? Meng Yichong didn't have time to salute when the man's expression suddenly became startled. His eyes flashed with a frightening light as he locked onto Soul Fighter, who was desperately trying to prick him with needles. Hall Master Fan, thank you very much. Meng Yichong? You're the president here? My personal disciple, Soul Fighter, is in grave danger. Please open the seal immediately. I will compensate your alliance for the cost. Hall Master Fan, you must be joking. You coming here to help us is already the greatest support you can give to our alliance. Open it. Meng Yichong immediately gave the order. Hiss hiss hiss, beams of dazzling light suddenly rose from the protective boundary of the supply depot. Fan Suixin had reached the peak of the Earth Immortal Realm, so he did not need to step out of the supply depot. With a wave of his hand, he unleashed a terrifying energy that seemed to connect heaven and earth. To rumble, the vast and terrifying energy contained a monstrous demonic aura. Wherever it passed, countless monsters were annihilated. In the blink of an eye, it crossed a distance of 100 miles and condensed into a 1,000-meter-long demonic hand. It directly wrapped around Soul Fighter, who was in a life-or-death situation. With a ripping sound, it retracted back to the supply station. Ah, so powerful! The Demon Lord has made his move. This is definitely an ability that only an Earth Immortal can possess. This sudden scene instantly attracted the attention of countless people. Each and every one of them stared at the heaven-shocking hand in horror, extremely shocked. Human Immortal, Earth Immortal, Divine Immortal, Daoyuo Jinxian. This classification system was the same whether it was the Immortal Path, the Demon Path, or the Demon Path. In fact, the ancestors of the Immortal Path, the Demon Path, and the Demon Path were the Immortal Path. However, with the development of the long river of history, the Demon Path and the Demon Path opened up a shortcut and became independent sections. That was how the Demon Path and the Demon Path came into existence today. For example, Fan Suixin could be called the Celestial Immortal. However, out of respect for the demon path, they called him the Demon Lord. Master, when Soul Fighter called for help but no one came to help, he thought that he was going to die here. He did not expect that at this critical moment his master would come to his rescue. Good. It's rare that you can hold on until now when you're injured to such a degree. Fortunately, I came in time, or else the consequences would be unimaginable. Soul Fighter, I have no objections if you insist on training yourself, but in such a dangerous situation, you could have died if you were not careful. This time you've gone too far. You should have activated the puppet substitute. Fan Suixin said as he injected a stream of pure energy into Soul Fighter's body. But if I could activate the puppet substitute, I would have done so long ago. What do you mean? I've already used up my puppet substitute. Otherwise, I would have died with my junior brothers and sisters. Those despicable bastards sneaked up on me. What? Who dared to sneak up on you? It's the disciples of the Winter Plum Hall of the Wuxia Immortal Palace. One of them is Qin Shui, who only rose to fame in the past 6 months. The other two are the bastards Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu. How could they sneak up on you? How could they have killed the others? Fan Suixin frowned as a ferocious look flashed across his face. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu could not withstand a single blow, but that Qin Shui is only half a step to the manifestation realm, yet she has mastered the Wuxia Immortal Palace's concealment technique, which allows her to merge with everything in the world. However, even she can't do anything to me. There's also that unknown fellow. If not for him, our people would not have died. It's also because of his sneak attack that I had to use the puppet substitute. It's a pity that they must have all died in the beast tide, or else I would definitely avenge my junior brothers and sisters by cutting them into pieces and destroying their bodies and souls. As Soul Fighter spoke, he looked at the towering battle record ranking pagoda not far away. After all, he did not see Chen Hao and the others perish with his own eyes. He only wanted to confirm that his speculation was almost 100% correct. However, he did not expect to see the names of the proud Heaven's Guardians on the pagoda. What surprised him even more was that the names of Chen Hao, Qin Shui, and the others were all on the individual battle record ranking pagoda. What did this mean? It meant that, until now, none of the members of the proud Heaven's Guardians had died. Including Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu, they were all still alive. Otherwise, their names would inevitably disappear from the pagoda along with their deaths. They're still alive. How is this possible? How is this possible? Soul Fighter could not believe his eyes. Not to mention the beast tide, even if there were hundreds of thousands of monsters, they would not have been able to hold on until now. Meng Yichong, who was originally standing to the side, had already realized that something was wrong when he heard Soul Fighter say the names of Qin Shui and the others. After listening to Soul Fighter's account, he quietly left. He did not want to stay here any longer. This already involved the battle between the Wuxia Immortal Palace and the Wuxia Demon Palace. As a member of the Alliance, he would not be involved. As for helping Chen Hao and the others condense the protective barrier, there was no problem. This was because Chen Hao and the others had issued the highest-level rescue mission. As a member of the Alliance, he could also participate. Moreover, if he had rescued Chen Hao and the others, at least 500 million upper-grade primal crystal stones would have gone into his pocket. The rest would be distributed by the members who rushed to the location of the mission. Of course, the reason why Meng Yichong left was also because he thought more highly of Chen Hao and the others, especially Chen Hao. From the importance Fan Suixin placed on Soul Fighter, it could be seen how strong he was. Furthermore, he was an expert at the initial stage of the Blessed Realm. However, he was defeated by Chen Hao and the others, and seemed to have killed everyone else. What kind of combat power was this? Under Fan Suixin's questioning, Soul Fighter, a despicable person who abandoned his senior and junior brothers, completely inverted right and wrong. He accused Chen Hao, Qin Shui, and the others of being as shameless as possible. He even made up stories about how Chen Hao and the others looked down on the Broken Heart Palace. As an expert at the Earth's celestial stage, Fan Suixin naturally did not believe everything Soul Fighter said. In fact, as long as there was a result, it was enough. The result was that more than 10 genius disciples of the Broken Heart Palace died at the hands of Chen Hao and the others. This was enough. Master, I didn't expect them to be able to hold on until now. I think it must be because they issued the highest level rescue mission. However, if the experts of the Wuxia Immortal Palace did not come, they would definitely die in the beast tide and would not be able to hold on for long. Soul Fighter said after briefly describing the evil deeds of Chen Hao and the others. Is Chen Hao very strong? Fan Suixin could vaguely tell that Soul Fighter was pointing the finger at Chen Hao, who was only at the later stage of the primordial soul realm. Yes, a little strong. The main thing is that he sneaked up on me. He must have cultivated an extremely powerful concealment unique skill. I don't know if it is the unique skill of the Wuxia Immortal Palace. Moreover, his physical body is very strong. He might have cultivated an abnormal unique skill of body refining. They are still alive. The experts of the Wuxia Immortal Palace will definitely arrive soon. It will not be difficult to save them. Your senior brothers and senior sisters will be under your command. I only want a result, and that is to find an opportunity to kill all of them. Otherwise, the reputation of the Broken Heart Palace will be lost because of you. Master, you go and treat your injuries first. Celestial Prime Han Mei, thank you for coming to help. After more than 10 minutes, a figure appeared on the city wall. Meng Yichong quickly appeared in front of the person and said respectfully. Celestial Prime Han Mei was famous in the entire boundless land. Everyone knew her. It was not because of her high cultivation. In fact, Celestial Prime Han Mei's cultivation was not stronger than Fan Suixin of the Wuxia Immortal Palace. However, Meng Yichong was obviously much more respectful when facing Celestial Prime Han Mei. This was because Celestial Prime Han Mei's identity was not as simple as being the palace master of the Wuxia Immortal Palace. Otherwise, Celestial Prime Han Mei would not have retained her position as the palace master after she had disappeared for more than 100 years. To be continued. Chapter 428. I should be the one thanking President Meng for giving them 4 hours? Venerable Han Mei said coldly, all the creation realm experts in Han Mei Hall will come to help. Thank you very much. I'm afraid this beast tide is level 10. I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on for 4 hours. Venerable Han Mei, I'll open the bounded domain for you. Your disciple's position. I know. That's good. Meng Yichong said and directly gave the order to open the bounded domain. Chen Hao didn't know that when he was still digging and Chen Shui and the others were recovering, Venerable Han Mei had quietly arrived at their location. The terrifying beast tide didn't even have time to sense her existence before she directly integrated into the protective bounded domain condensed by Chen Hao. In a moment, she entered the deep hole dug by Chen Hao. Moreover, Chen Hao clearly blocked the hole, but there was no fluctuation. This was the 5 elements escape technique that only Earth's celestial stage experts could successfully cultivate. It allowed the body to integrate with all things and pass through mountains and seas. Comet crystal? Black sand crystal? Parish red crystal. This is what he and little Shui got from the 9 nether frost pond? When Chen Hao stopped digging and took out the stones he got from the origin space to start setting up the bounded domain, he didn't realize that his every move was under the watch of Venerable Han Mei. Chen Hao and Chen Shui didn't hide the fact that they entered the 9 nether frost pond from Venerable Han Mei. The reason was very simple. When they came out of the 9 nether frost pond, their every move was under the surveillance of Venerable Han Mei. In their conversation, they naturally mentioned the 9 nether frost pond. Venerable Han Mei was extremely shocked at that time, but she knew the seriousness of the matter. Therefore, she didn't tell anyone and wouldn't tell anyone. What kind of bounded domain is this? After seeing Chen Hao quickly use the crystal to set up a bounded domain that even she felt was mysterious, Venerable Han Mei was even more surprised. What kind of secret is hidden in this kid's body? I know his experience like the back of my hand. Where did he learn this bounded domain that even I have never seen before? If I set it up, the power will definitely increase by 10 times. Unfortunately, I can't take out such precious crystal. These two arrogant fellows have actually been tamed by this brat to become docile and obedient? How long had it been? Unbelievable. After 3 hours, Chen Shui and the rest recovered a little and met up with Chen Hao. When immortal Venerable Han Mei saw Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxu's respectful attitude towards Chen Hao, she was even more surprised. She really couldn't understand how these two fellows, who didn't fear her, the hall master, who had suddenly returned, could become so obedient in front of Chen Hao in just 2 short days. She was very clear why the two of them chased after Chen Shui. The reason why she agreed was to give Chen Hao some pressure and color. At the same time, she also wanted to let Chen Hao realize how popular Chen Shui was. However, the current situation was simply too unexpected. Where was the color? It was as if he had become Chen Hao's most loyal supporter. She couldn't figure it out. Of course, if he had seen what everyone had gone through in the past half a day, he would have figured it out. Bang! Boom! Finally, when there was only a quarter of an hour left before the 4-hour time limit mentioned by Meng Yichong, the protective seal exploded under the increasingly powerful attacks of the monsters. Chen Hao also accurately activated the major phaseless heaven sealing formation before the protective seal shattered. I want to see how long they can last. This beast tide is definitely a level 10 beast tide, and it's very likely that it will continue to grow. This is also a kind of training for them. Immortal Venerable Han Mei quietly hid beside Chen Hao, Chen Shui, and the others, not in a hurry to make a move. When Immortal Venerable Han Mei saw everyone's injuries, she knew that they must have experienced a very fierce battle. However, she didn't know how everyone's performance was. However, from Meng Yichong's actions and words, she could feel that the performance of Chen Hao and the others must have attracted Meng Yichong's attention. Otherwise, Meng Yichong wouldn't have spent half of his true essence to condense the formation for Chen Hao and the others. Moreover, there must be a lot of secrets, but she didn't have the time to ask. The moment the protective seal broke, there was a huge vibration. Even though everyone was deep underground, they felt it very intense. One by one, they woke up from their cultivation state and ran out of their independent caves. No, the strength of this beast tide is probably beyond our imagination. It won't be easy for us to get through it safely. Everyone cheer up and try your best to recover. The more dangerous it is, the calmer you have to be. What's the use of panicking? Try your best to recover. The longer we persist, the greater our chances of survival. Don't waste time. Chen Hao said with a solemn expression. His powerful soul perception had clearly sensed that the monsters outside would not give up on them. These monsters all had human intelligence. At this moment, although the major phaseless heaven sealing formation had blocked their aura, the monsters obviously knew that they were inside. Moreover, the moment the protective seal broke, they began to violently attack the cave he dug. And they were destroying it at an astonishing speed. Fortunately, after a few minutes, as the lava became harder and harder, the speed of destruction slowed down. Chen Hao heaved a sigh of relief. Rumble. Half-step human immortal monsters? After a few minutes, Chen Hao's hair stood on end. An extremely terrifying aura, like a sharp sword, began to penetrate through the air. The speed of destruction increased by several times. Damn it! Hundreds of monster commanders, other than the ones that besieged us just now, there are even half-step human immortals. Chen Hao's expression became extremely ugly. He originally thought that with such powerful rocks in the formation, they should be able to hold on for a long time until the experts came to rescue them. No matter what, he did not expect to become a turtle in a jar so soon. This was even more frustrating than before, because all of them did not even have the right to fight. What kind of concept was a half-step human immortal monster? Once the formation was broken, they would be instantly bombarded into pieces and basically have no power to fight back. This was the suppression of absolute power. Half-step human immortals actually came? Is this still a level 10 beast tide? Venerable Han Mei was also surprised. At this moment, she, who was hiding near Chen Hao, frowned. Obviously, the arrival of half-step human immortal monsters was beyond her expectations. One had to know that the outbreak of a beast tide usually started from weak to strong. Even if it was a level 10 beast tide, it had only been 4 hours since it started. How could half-step human immortal monsters come so quickly? I'm afraid this beast tide is not simple. Venerable Han Mei knew that for Chen Hao and the others, this could no longer be used as a training ground. The violent shaking was as if the earth was about to collapse. Huyen Aobo and the others could not force themselves to enter the recovery state. Their bodies were bounced up by the terrifying shaking, and one by one, they withdrew from their cultivation in horror. But how can he be so strong? Everything has an accident. Half-step human immortal monsters, it seems like this accident is really going to kill us. However, there is another way. If we don't succeed, all of us will die. If we succeed, other than me and Xiao Shui, all of you will have to cultivate again for at least a few years. Are you willing to do it? Venerable Han Mei had already decided to show herself, but she did not expect Chen Hao to suddenly say such a thing. Half-step human immortal. Isn't that a death sentence? Boss, tell us. Anyway, we have already died once. If we succeed, it will be a good thing. Yes. Boss, tell us. No matter what, we will do as you say. There is not much time, so I will make it short. I have a magical treasure that can absorb your primordial spirit, and it can completely conceal the aura of your primordial spirit. As long as you give up your physical body and let your primordial spirit leave your body, you will be able to escape the detection of the monsters. There is no way to survive in the beast tide with your physical body. The only way is to give up your physical body. As for me and Xiao Shui, we have the Heart Sutra that can merge with all things in the world. Taking advantage of the cover of the major phaseless heaven-sealing formation, Xiao Shui and I only need to dig a hole in the distance. Maybe we will have a chance to escape. But the chance is not big. Boss. For us, you and sister-in-law. Hearing Chen Hao's words, everyone was shocked, but at the same time, a trace of gratitude flashed in their eyes. Obviously, Chen Hao and Chen Shuerao wanted to escape on their own. If they were left behind, the chances of escaping would be higher. However, Chen Hao and Chen Shui did not do so. Moreover, even if they gave up their physical bodies, they still needed to discuss it with them. Since I brought all of you out, we will live and die together. We don't have much time, at most 15 minutes, and the monsters will be here. All of you need to make a decision immediately. Boss, you and sister-in-law can escape. There is no point in leaving your primordial spirit behind and seizing your soul to be reborn. After 18 years, we will still be able to reach our current level. Moreover, we have the blood sacrifice oath, so we will definitely be able to follow you again. I, Huyen Aobo, will stay. Second brother is right. If I stay, won't I just die? Boss, don't worry about us. If you and sister-in-law can escape, when we are reincarnated, we will receive special treatment from you. Pa, that's even better. The first king said, all of you, shut up. I will give all of you 2 choices. Either we wait for death together, or you give up your physical bodies and try it with me. Just as the others were about to speak, Chen Hao said coldly, there are still 14 minutes left. Any later and it will be too late. Just as Huyen Aobo was about to speak, Chen Hao gave him a slap without any warning. He blocked his mouth and said domineeringly, say your decision. If you do it, then do it immediately. If you don't, then we will all die here. Chapter 429. Of course, Chen Hao knew why everyone chose to stay. It was nothing more than sacrificing them to create more opportunities for him and Chen Shui to escape. The wisdom of monsters was no less than that of humans. If they didn't see a living person, how could they not be suspicious? If Chen Hao and Chen Shui escaped, and they stayed behind, dismembered and destroyed, the situation would be completely different. But how could Chen Hao do such a thing? A real man has to do and not do. That was not Chen Hao's character. The crowd exchanged glances with one another and clenched their teeth. In the end, they still nodded toward Chen Hao's domineering attitude. But, just as everyone was about to condense their essence, qi, and spirit towards their primordial spirit and give up their physical bodies, A gentle energy directly wrapped everyone. "All right, come with me." A cold but slightly gentle voice sounded. "Mother." Chen Shui suddenly opened her eyes wide. Looking at the figure that appeared silently in front of everyone, she was full of surprise, and excitement. Death who was willing to die. Being able to see through life and death did not mean that one was willing to die. A bad life was better than a good death. What's more, whether it was Chen Shui or Chen Hao or everyone present, they were very young and had many unfulfilled wishes, many things to do, many things that they hoped to do but did not do. Palace Master. "Greetings, Palace Master." Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu also looked at the person in surprise and bowed. Cough cough. Chen Hao's eyes widened as his mind raced. Almost instantly, he was certain that the nameless old man had entered before he activated the formation. Otherwise, there was no way he would not have sensed him. This array was connected to his and old god's mind. Even with the nameless old man's cultivation, it was absolutely impossible for him to silently pass through the array and appear in front of them. "Greetings, Mother." When Han Mei Immortal Venerable looked at Chen Hao, he didn't know how to address her, but after a slight hesitation, he simply followed Chen Shui and called her mother. Han Mei Immortal Venerable was shocked and didn't say anything for a long time. Chen Shui also had an awkward expression on her face. Even if she usually addressed her as master, this time, it was completely because it was too sudden, too pleasantly surprised, too unexpected that she couldn't help but call out mother. Unexpectedly, Chen Hao, who had been arrogant, domineering and righteous just a moment ago, had become so thick-skinned in an instant. One must know that Han Mei Immortal Venerable did not officially announce her relationship with Chen Shui. Even Jiang Hai, Huang Wenxiu, and the others could only guess Chen Shui's background. "This form of address is too early." Han Mei Venerable held back for a long time and finally said such a sentence. "Well, since I'm going to call you that sooner or later, I might as well change it now. No. Without my permission, you called me Immortal Venerable Han Mei." Although Venerable Han Mei already knew Chen Hao very well, she didn't expect this fella to be so casual in front of her. How could he call her mother now? If she allowed it, this brat would be too complacent. This was the daughter she had carried for more than 100 years. How could it be so easy? "Let's go. If we delay any longer, these beasts will attack us." "Mother, wait. You still dare to call me that? This? I won't call you that in front of others. Now that we're all on the same side, it's too estranged for me to call you Immortal Venerable Han Mei. Mother, since you're here, can you help me a little more?" "Help me a little more? What do you want to do?" "I keep feeling that there's something I want below. It's just that my ability can only dig to this depth. I can't dig any deeper. So, these are just high-grade fire attribute ores. Although they're good materials for refining, they're everywhere in the hundreds of thousands of miles around the supply station. Any deeper is just a little better. What do you want? If you need it, you can just take these." After refining with the heavenly fire and refining with the 1,000 tempering method, it's very easy to raise the quality of this mineral to the highest level. I know this, but I really feel that there's something I need below. It's definitely not this mineral, Chen Hao said seriously. "Is that so?" Seeing Chen Hao like this, Immortal Venerable Han Mei pondered for a moment. Chen Hao's so-called feeling usually only appeared when he encountered a great opportunity. Moreover, it had nothing to do with the strength of one's perception. Could it be that there's really something else here? "Yes, how do I dig? How deep do I have to dig?" Immortal Venerable Han Mei said. As she spoke, she waved her hand and sent out 108 streams of energy, which directly poured into the formation formed by Chen Hao. In an instant, the light in the entire cave was more than 10 times stronger than before. It was obvious that the power of the formation had increased by several levels. Follow the direction I'm digging and continue down. It's not very deep, only about 8,000 feet. Immortal Venerable Han Mei didn't say anything, but when Huyan Aobo and the others heard Chen Hao's words, they were dumbfounded. Damn, 8,000 feet isn't very deep? Perhaps only their boss could say this. Huyan Aobo and the others were fine, but Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu, who knew Chen Hao very little, were even more speechless. Immortal Venerable Han Mei frowned slightly and made her move. She didn't use the carving technique, but relied on her incomparably powerful true essence to directly penetrate. This was something that couldn't be helped. Although the highest level of the carving technique was indestructible, it couldn't use any true essence. Even if it was digging tofu, it would take a long time to dig a distance of 8,000 feet. With Immortal Venerable Han Mei's cultivation, she only needed to use her true essence to penetrate it, and the speed was so fast that it made everyone stunned. The incomparably sharp energy was like a laser cutter, but also like a diamond drill. A deep circular hole continued to extend downwards, but Immortal Venerable Han Mei didn't even have a place to move. Okay, it's done. In less than a minute, Chen Hao hurriedly stopped her. I'll go down and take a look, I'll be right back. Be careful, the temperature of the lava below is unbearable even for creation realm experts. Immortal Venerable Han Mei sensed the situation below and reminded. Don't worry. While everyone was puzzled, Chen Hao directly turned into a stream of light and drilled into the cave. Billowing heat waves hit his face. As Chen Hao went deeper, the temperature rose sharply. Even Chen Hao felt a huge pressure, but fortunately, it was still within his tolerance range. Chen Hao was very excited because he was about to collect the materials needed to further fuse with Old God, the Fire Essence Jade Marrow. In fact, when Chen Hao chose to dig here, he had already discovered the existence of the Fire Essence Jade Marrow. Of course, this was what Old God sensed. Although Chen Hao's perception could sense tens of thousands of feet underground, he couldn't catch the aura of the Fire Essence Jade Marrow. In fact, if one hadn't seen the Fire Essence Jade Marrow, no one would be able to catch it. Otherwise, with Immortal Venerable Han Mei's cultivation, how could she not feel the abnormality? This is the Fire Essence Jade Marrow? After arriving at the bottom of the cave, Chen Hao stared at the crimson lava at the bottom of the cave and frowned. Even in front of him, Chen Hao still didn't find anything unusual. The Fire Essence Jade Marrow that Old God spoke of didn't seem to be any different from the surrounding lava. Yes, don't doubt it. It's normal that you can't see it. The Fire Essence Jade Marrow has been nurtured for millions of years and has a certain level of intelligence. At this moment, it sensed our arrival and simulated the color and aura of the lava. Let's begin. Old God said. Okay, Chen Hao's mind stirred. He no longer cared about the attention of Immortal Venerable Han Mei and the others. In the face of death a moment ago, he had already exposed the fact that he had a special magic weapon. There was nothing to worry about as long as they didn't know about the existence of Old God and Treasure Hunter's sword spirit. The moment his mind stirred, under Old God's guidance, a seven-colored light floated out from between Chen Hao's eyebrows and slowly integrated into the lava at the bottom of the cave. Chen Hao only needed to cooperate with Old God. He only needed to provide energy, while Old God's spiritual sense slowly integrated into the lava. Between the heavens and the earth, any treasure that had gained sentience was not a simple matter if one wanted to extract it. The first thing one had to do was to tame the sentience within it. Whether it was through coercion, bribery, or goodwill, in short, one had to make it willingly before they could successfully extract it. Otherwise, this intelligence that was born between heaven and earth would resist to the death. It would rather destroy its own intelligence than be willing to be extracted. In that case, even if the Fire Essence Jade Marrow was extracted, it would lose its original effect. Blood Essence. After a full 10 minutes, Old God suddenly said in Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao didn't hesitate. He directly forced out a blood arrow and sprayed it on the lava below him. In an instant, a ghostly blue flame rose from the lava. In the next moment, the lava underwent an astonishing change. It turned into a fiery red, crystal-clear liquid. A terrifying heat was contained within, but it didn't leak out. Because of this change, the surrounding aura didn't change at all. This was the Fire Essence Jade Marrow. Absorb. The liquid was 30 feet in radius. With the urging of Chen Hao's mind, it turned into a water arrow and fused into Chen Hao's eyebrows with lightning speed. At this moment, Chen Hao could clearly feel a faint life fluctuation. Through the blood essence, it created a subtle connection with him. This feeling allowed Chen Hao to be sure that if he wanted to, he could freely control the terrifying heavenly flame aura contained within. This heavenly flame was of a high level, reaching a realm that Chen Hao had never comprehended. Hugh, I didn't expect this little fellow to be so difficult to deal with. Its intelligence is quite high. Fortunately, it is still within my control. Once we return, we can go into seclusion and further integrate. Old God said, "What is the level of this heavenly flame? It seems very strong." Chen Hao asked. 9-layered heavenly flame. The highest level of heavenly flame. In the future, as your cultivation increases, it can transform into a higher level mystical flame. Chapter 430. Mystic Fire. According to the Boundless Worlds classification, one needed to reach the human immortal stage to be able to comprehend it. The Heaven Fire was the highest level of the fire attribute below the human immortal stage. 9 heavenly fire. That's not bad. I should be able to use it to attack, right? Don't think like that. The reason why you chose the Fire Essence Jade Marrow with spiritual wisdom is because of its self-recovery ability. Otherwise, how many times can you use such a small amount of heaven fire? After you and I have further integrated, it will exist in the smelting furnace. Whether it is alchemy or weapon refining, it will allow you to accurately control the fire. When refining the same elixir or weapon, you only need to do it once and it will remember the whole process. The next time you refine it, you don't need to control it at all and it will cooperate with you very well. More importantly, after the smelting, it can self-recover fire attribute energy. Sounds good. Let's go. A stream of light flashed and Chen Hao appeared in front of everyone. What is it? Senior Immortal Han Mei asked curiously. When the Fire Essence Jade Marrow appeared, she had clearly sensed the aura of the Fire Essence Jade Marrow. However, it was nothing in her eyes. The only thing that surprised her was that it contained a trace of spiritual wisdom. I don't know. I feel that it's a good thing. It's useful for me to comprehend the Heaven Fire realm, Chen Hao said vaguely and did not want to explain too much. Senior Immortal Han Mei did not ask any more questions. She waved her hand and released a stream of energy to wrap everyone up. With a casual grab, the array that Chen Hao had set up dissipated. 108 crystals that even Senior Immortal Han Mei was tempted by were taken into her bag. She said, "I'll give you a spiritual medicine that can regenerate your broken arm in a short time and these crystals are mine." Cough, cough, no problem. If you need it, I have more. We're family so you don't have to treat me like an outsider. Take it. When we return to the supply station, swallow it and your broken arm will be regenerated in 2 hours. Senior Immortal Han Mei stared at Chen Hao and said. After that, she did not say anything else and directly wrapped everyone up and rushed to the top of the cave. Rumble. Ow ow ow. When Immortal Venerable Han Mei led everyone to the void, she casually launched attacks that turned those fearless monsters into ashes. Even the half-step human immortal monster was no exception. What do you mean by absolute power? This was it. Is this the strength of an immortal venerable? Too strong. When can I reach such a realm? Whether it was Huyan Aobua and the rest, or Chen Hao, they were all overwhelmed with shock. The monsters that had almost forced them to their deaths were like ants in front of them, unable to withstand a single blow. With a wave of his hand, a large area was wiped out. No more monsters could come within 100 miles of them. Power, power. If I had this kind of power, how could this group of monsters force me into such a desperate situation? Chen Hao felt Han Mei's terrifying power and clenched his remaining fist. Open! A spatial crack suddenly appeared in front of them. Immortal Venerable Han Mei led them into the spatial crack. The violent and chaotic energy couldn't get close to them. The spatial crack was moving forward at an astonishing speed. Kacha! In the chaotic space, terrifying lightning would erupt from time to time. Looking from afar, one could see a blue passage that seemed to stretch across the Milky Way. Densely packed monsters were wrapped in it, constantly tearing through the space barrier and sending them into the boundless land. They've become so dense? Senior Immortal Han Mei was surprised when she saw this scene. She led everyone in the chaotic space and quickly changed directions. Obviously, she was avoiding the eruption of the monster tide river and the terrifying thunderbolts that it triggered. In just 2 minutes, Senior Immortal Han Mei directly tore the space and everyone appeared on the side of the 160th supply station's wall. Boom 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 boom, kill. Terrifying explosions and the sounds of slaughter immediately entered everyone's ears. There was an endless number of monsters. Around the city walls were countless experts at the peak of the late-stage primordial spirit realm, half-step to the creation realm, as well as early-stage and middle-stage creation realm experts. They gathered in waves and fought with the monsters. The scene was extremely intense and tragic. The protective barrier opens once every 2 hours. High-level monsters won't come close to the city for a few days. If you're not afraid, you can train here. However, if you encounter danger again, I won't take action. Senior Immortal Han Mei was still protecting everyone with her energy. The surrounding monsters that were not afraid of death could not get close at all. Do you want to try? Senior Immortal Han Mei believed that Qin Hao and Qin Shui's combat power should be able to withstand it. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu could also barely do it. However, she wasn't sure about Huyan Aobua and the others. After all, the cultivators who came out at this moment were led by creation realm experts. Let's withdraw our protection. I've been holding it in for a long time. Don't worry about them, Chen Hao said directly. Alright, be careful. Master, it's them. The one with the broken arm is Chen Hao. When Senior Immortal Han Mei, Chen Hao, and the others appeared at the foot of the city wall, on the city wall, Soul Fighter, who had spent more than half an hour to recover, stopped healing early because he was worried about the situation of Chen Hao and the others. At this moment, when he saw Chen Hao and the others, he said with a ferocious face, "Just these few people were able to almost wipe out your entire army?" After sensing the aura of Chen Hao and the others with his powerful perception, Fan Suixin stared at Soul Fighter and said with a gloomy face, if not for the fact that Soul Fighter was his favorite disciple, he would have given him a tight slap. In his opinion, this was a great humiliation. Not to mention that Soul Fighter MO was in the Blessed Realm. Even if 10 of the other 17 people were in the same realm, they would be able to kill Chen Hao and the others. But in the end, all 17 of them died, and Soul Fighter MO, who was in the Blessed Realm, almost died. How could this be? They are very strong. Most importantly, their sneak attack caused us serious damage. Humph! Are they back? At the same time, a graceful figure locked onto Senior Immortal Han Mei and the others. When she arrived, she first confirmed whether Chen Hao and the others were there, and then she got the news from Meng Yichong. She also knew that Senior Immortal Han Mei had already gone to rescue them, so she did not ask to open the seal. With Senior Immortal Han Mei, as long as she could arrive in time, it was impossible that they could not save them. Kill! At Chen Hao's order, the group immediately started to kill crazily. After facing 2 life and death situations, especially the last one where they were forced to be cowards, everyone had a belly full of anger and killing intent that needed to be released. Although they were only killing some small fries and not the main culprits, at least they could vent their anger. Furthermore, resisting the beast horde was indeed the best place for young people to train themselves. Naturally, they would not give up. Huyan Aobua and the rest of the 12 formed the formless 12 constellations battle formation, while Chen Hao, Qin Shui, Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu were at the 4 corners of the battle formation, complementing each other. Coupled with everyone's desire to vent their frustrations, the commotion caused by the battle attracted the attention of countless people on the city walls. Even Senior Immortal Han Mei, Senior Immortal Yun Wei, Fan Suixin, and the others were dumbfounded. How could a dozen people with low realms be so strong? The 16 people seemed to have formed an indestructible war chariot. They charged through the monsters near the city walls, and wherever they went, countless monsters screamed in pain and were torn apart. Even the monsters in the middle stage of Blessed Realm could not stop the group's advance. The monsters' limbs flew everywhere, And what made some of the poor people speechless was that Chen Hao and the others did not even stop for a moment after killing the monsters in the creation realm. They did not even care about the precious monster's inner core. What a magical battle formation! Many experts saw the clues and praised in their hearts. The disciples of Limitless Immortal Palace are really strong. Look, there are a few groups of disciples over there. They are all from the various halls of Limitless Demon Palace. Their realms are obviously much higher, but their lethality is far less than these disciples. You can't say that. Didn't you see that it was Senior Immortal Han Mei who brought them here? Senior Immortal Han Mei. Her identity is not simple. Wouldn't it be easy for her to learn all the lost techniques of Limitless Immortal Palace? The other disciples from the various halls of Limitless Immortal Palace are also far from being comparable to them, right? That's true. However, the talent of these people is also incomparable to ordinary people, especially the one with the broken arm and the one in the blue dress. It's really incredible. How? Chen Hao. Chen Hao, 3 voices, separated by a few miles, penetrated the dense monster group, terrifying beast roars and explosions, and appeared in Chen Hao's ears. Chen Hao, who was killing to his heart's content, felt a thump in his heart, and immediately his whole face revealed a touch of surprise. How, only Xia Yuyu would call him this. Who else could call him Chen Hao twice with the same surprise and different feelings, other than Helian Wuxi and Tantai Lian, who had always been calling him by his name from the beginning? Bang bang bang. Chen Hao punched and kicked, and in an instant he violently blasted away the attacking monsters. His whole body suddenly soared into the sky, and his eyes were directly locked on a few miles away, where 3 figures were fighting fiercely. After not seeing each other for more than 2 years, how could Chen Hao not be excited when they suddenly met in this strange place? Chen Hao, who was originally killing back and forth in the vicinity, suddenly led everyone to kill in another direction. What's wrong with you? Seeing Chen Hao's abnormality, Chen Shui asked puzzledly. Little Wu and the others are also here. Chen Hao chuckled and said with a voice transmission. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Chen Shui curled her lips, but didn't say anything. She released her mind and immediately sensed the aura of the 3 women. Helian Wuxi, Xia Yuyu, and Tantai Lian only followed the disciples of Yunwei Hall to gain experience. Senior Immortal Yunwei didn't mention to them that Chen Hao might be here, but how could they not notice the terrifying momentum caused by Chen Hao, Chen Shui, and the others who were not far away? This sudden surprise almost made the 3 of them lose their minds. Fortunately, they were surrounded by senior brothers and sisters who took care of them. Chapter 431. What are they doing? When the Yunwei Hall disciples who were with Helian Wuxi and the other 2 saw Chen Hao and the others approach them directly, they all frowned slightly. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenshu knew them. Chen Shui was also known by someone else. After all, the disciples of Limitless Immortal Palace often had the opportunity to train together. However, no one recognized the one-armed youth, Huyen Ao Bo, and the rest of the group. Moreover, they had already seen that the one-armed youth was the leader. Whether it was the battle strength or actions, it could prove this point. Although they knew each other, the disciples of each palace had a competitive relationship. Basically, they did not have any friendship. Why were they rushing towards them aggressively at this time? Wow, there are 3 beauties. Boss brought us here to see the beauties? Jing Tiangang and Bailey Lianqing's eyes lit up. The beauties are looking at me. Go, with your pig head, it's more like looking at me. Jing Tiangang and Bailey Lianqing did not change their nature in such a chaotic situation. Of course, the main reason was that there was no pressure. The level of the monsters now could not be compared to the monsters they encountered in the depths. Even if they did not use the battle formation, they could handle it. Not to mention, they were in the 12 phaseless constellations battle formation. Otherwise, they would not have the leisure to do this. They are obviously looking at Boss. They are disciples of Limitless Immortal Palace. Look at Boss's expression. Could it be Little 8 and Little 9? Do you know them? Huyen Aobua, who was beside the 2, did not reveal his lecherous gaze this time and said rationally, They should be the 3 female disciples of Yunwei Palace who started to show their talents in the past 2 years. They are called Helian Wuxi, Xiaoyu and Tentai Lian. I don't know who they are, but they are not bad. Hee, I have a new target. Jiang Hai, this time you can't fight with me. There are 3, don't choose the same as me. What's with your expressions? Huang Wenxiu had not finished speaking when Jing Tiangang and Bailey Lianqing's expressions changed. Audacious. Damn, do you want to die? You 2 perverts. Is this something you can be tempted by? Huan Aobua, Jing Tiangang, and Bailey Lianqing stared at the 3 of them and said in a low voice. Ranking is ranking. Don't think that you can suppress the 2 of us just because you're ranked high. Why can't we? We're both from the limitless immortal palace. Although we're not from the same palace, we're still close to each other. Huang Wenxiu said unwillingly. Awesome. Alright then, go ahead. Anyway, you guys have no duties, so you can rush over now. I'll support you. Yeah, I support it too. I have faith in you. Go. Show me your might and majesty. Don't listen to them. These 3 people are our sisters-in-law. At this moment, Meng Xiao couldn't stand it anymore and said in a low voice. 3 sisters-in-law? What do you mean? Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu were puzzled. They naturally didn't know about Chen Hao's romantic affairs, but Huyan Aobua and the others all knew about it when they were drinking. After hearing the name from Huang Wenxiu, how could he not remember? They are both Boss Dao companions. Meng Xiao said. It can't be, right? Isn't that a little too exaggerated? Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu were a little dumbfounded. What's so exaggerated about it? The 3 of them, Aunt Shui and Boss, are all from the eastern continent. Hey, brat, what do you mean? The sky is full of monsters, and they're crowding toward us. Is it fun? When they were 10,000 feet away, the Blessed Realm expert who led the team from Yunwei Hall, a teenager who was slightly older than Chen Hao and the others, shouted at Chen Hao, who was charging ahead. Senior brother Yun, he's looking for us. Before Chen Hao could say anything, Xiaoyu spoke first. We'll go over first. Thank you for leading us, senior brother. Chi. Once Xiaoyu finished speaking, she, Helian Wuxi, and Tantai Lian directly activated their energy and blasted away the monsters around them. They also rushed toward Chen Hao. Junior sisters, you want to leave the team? Who is he? He's Chen Hao. If there's a chance, I'll be with you again. I'm sorry. Xiaoyu said apologetically, but her figure didn't stop at all. Chen Hao? He's Chen Hao? Hearing Xiaoyu's words, the disciples of Yunwei Hall all revealed surprised expressions. Unlike Cold Plum Hall, all the members of Yunwei Hall, regardless of whether they were young disciples or high-ranking members, were familiar with the name Chen Hao. As early as a year ago, when Chen Hao stepped into the central continent, senior immortal Yunwei had announced Chen Hao's information. If any disciple of Yunwei Hall met Chen Hao during their training, they had to take care of him. He was Yunwei Hall's top VIP. Moreover, senior immortal Yunwei also faintly revealed the relationship between Xiaoyu and the other 2 and Chen Hao. It was also because of this that Xiaoyu, Helian Wuxi, and Tantai Lian didn't have any flies around them. No wonder the Hall Master values him so much. At this moment, all the disciples of Yunwei Hall who were in the midst of battle looked at Chen Hao with completely different eyes. Expand the range and respectfully welcome the arrival of the 3 sisters-in-law. Huyan Aobua let out an exaggerated roar, and the phaseless constellation battle formation formed by the 12 of them instantly changed its formation with a crash. When Helian Wuxi and the other 2 heard Huyan Aobua's exaggerated shout, they were a little happy in their hearts. Of course, they were also a little embarrassed. Happy because it seemed that Chen Hao had already told the people who were with him. Embarrassed because this address was a little too direct. After all, although their relationship with Chen Hao was clear, they still hadn't become true Dao companions. Hao, what's wrong with your arm? Xiaoyu was always so simple and direct, without the slightest barrier of meeting after a long separation. The moment she met up with Chen Hao, she took the initiative to move to Chen Hao's side and asked. Helian Wuxi, who was as cold as the moon and whose aura was even more ethereal, and Tantai Lian, whose face was slightly red, had both excited and a trace of bashfulness in their eyes. Their gazes towards Chen Hao were a little evasive, as if they weren't used to this sudden reunion. It's a small matter. In a moment, I'll go back and eat some spirit medicine and it'll be as good as new. What's wrong, little Wu, little Yen? After not seeing each other for 2 years, are you shy? Chen Hao said with a slight smile. Of course not. Helian Wuzi said, you're making such a big scene, many people are looking at us. At this moment, the 4 of them were already surrounded by Huyan Aobua and the others. No monsters could get close. However, no matter if it was Chen Shui or the sisters, they all pricked up their ears and listened to the 4's conversation. Of course not. It's a pity that I only have 1 arm at the moment. Otherwise, I would at least give you a hug. Chen Hao's gaze swept across the 3 of them and said, in fact, this guy was also a little embarrassed in his heart. After all, this was the beast tide. Of course, if Chen Shui wasn't present, it would definitely be much better. As for the sisters, Chen Hao didn't have any psychological pressure at all. After a brief exchange of words, the 4 of them didn't want to show off too much in front of so many people. Soon the battle began. While fighting, Chen Hao introduced Huyan Aobua and the others to the 3 girls. After introducing everyone, he introduced Chen Shui, whom the 3 girls had long heard of but had never seen before. Chen Shui, the 3 girls easily accepted. After all, Chen Hao had already given them a heads up. As for the beautiful sisters, Chen Hao only vaguely introduced them for the time being and did not say much. About an hour later, the sealing enchantment of the supply station was opened. Countless cultivators who had exhausted too much energy flew into the supply station. Although Chen Hao and the others didn't consume much energy and performed very bravely, their injuries had not fully recovered. Especially Lung Ninghuan, Meng Shiyao, and Chen Hao, who was missing an arm. Coupled with the arrival of the 3 girls and the fact that the beast tide wasn't much of a challenge at this moment, everyone also flew into the supply station. Brother Chen, I'm sorry just now. I've heard Master and the 3 junior sisters mention you many times. I've long heard of your name, but I've never had the chance to meet you. I'm Yun Feiyang. When Chen Hao and the others had just climbed up the city wall, more than 20 disciples of Yunwei Hall quickly rushed over. The disciple who shouted at Chen Hao just now clasped his fist and said to Chen Hao, Brother Chen, I'm Duan Shuelu. Nice to meet you. Brother Chen, cough cough. You don't have to be so polite. Thank you for taking care of Xiao Wu, Xiao Lian, and Yu. Chen Hao was a little dumbfounded. He thought that he would encounter a few love rivals, but he didn't expect that these guys, regardless of whether they were men or women, looked at him with very friendly eyes with a trace of faint admiration. This made him feel a little strange. Little guy, long time no see. At this moment, Senior Immortal Yun Wei, who had arrived a long time ago, quietly appeared in front of Chen Hao and the others. The graceful Senior Immortal Yun Wei's face was brimming with a kind smile as if she was an elder meeting a junior. It was natural. Greetings, Master. Seeing the familiar female Senior Immortal, everyone immediately clasped their fists and saluted. Chen Hao also clasped his fists and saluted with the others. He also called her Master. No need to be so polite, Senior Immortal Yun Wei said with a smile. She was obviously very satisfied with Chen Hao calling her Master. She stared at Chen Hao and said, in more than 2 years, although your cultivation level is not that high, your combat strength is still so outstanding. It's really rare. I heard that there was a beast tide in the supply station of Dian City, so I was worried that you might not be here. I didn't expect to find you here when I arrived. Fortunately, Senior Immortal Han Mei arrived early. Is your arm okay? It's okay. Senior Immortal Han Mei has already given me the elixir, but I haven't had the time to take it. Thank you for your concern, Master. Oh? Then I don't need to give it to you. Palace Master Han Mei, long time no see. At this moment, Senior Immortal Han Mei also arrived in front of everyone. Senior Immortal Yun Wei hastily clasped her fists and greeted Han Mei. Long time no see. Your 3 disciples are not bad. Senior Immortal Han Mei glanced at Senior Immortal Yun Wei before sizing up Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and Xia Yu. You're flattering me. Compared to your precious female disciple, they're just about the same. For now, they're still slightly inferior, Senior Immortal Yun Wei said with a smile. Although the two of them were complimenting each other, everyone could feel that something was wrong. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 432. Go and rest. The strength of today's beast tide is not a threat to you, especially little Hao and little Shui. You too? Venerable Han Mei looked at Chen Hao and Chen Shui with a gentle gaze. You two go and rest as well. Perform well tomorrow. Especially you, little Wu. You have to comprehend the use of the power of reincarnation? Venerable Yun Wei said with a smile. Yes, how could Chen Hao not dodge when the immortals were bickering? Especially from the looks of it, it seems like it was because of him. His face is really big. Chen Shui, Heli and Wuzi and the other two were also quite embarrassed. They haven't even started fighting, why did the elders start? This is really the case of the emperor not being anxious, but the eunuchs are. After arriving at the palace, Heli and Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tan Tai Lian naturally followed Chen Hao and the others. Huyen Aobo and the others consciously avoided them and entered their own rooms. Under Chen Hao's signal, the two beautiful sisters also took their leave. Only Chen Hao, Chen Shui, and the three girls stayed in the hall of the palace. However, Huyen Aobo and the others all pricked up their ears. Unfortunately, Chen Hao directly laid down a barrier, so everyone could only obediently enter the cultivation room to recuperate and heal their injuries. After not seeing each other for more than 2 years, Chen Hao naturally couldn't help but ask about each other's experiences. The three girls' experiences were the same as Chen Shui's. When it was the three girls' turn to ask about Chen Hao's experience, Chen Hao scratched his head and looked at Chen Shui. Little Shui, why don't you tell me about it? Why do you want me to tell you? If you dare to do it, then you must dare to admit it. Tell me yourself. Cough cough. You see, I'm still a one-armed hero. It's settled then. Anyway, you already know about my experience. I'll go and recover first. Oh, right, let's get to know each other formally. Tis. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he didn't allow Chen Shui to refuse and directly entered her room. It must be Lung Ning Huan and Lung Ning Lu. You can tell just by looking at him. Heli and Wuzi, who was as cold as the moon, rolled her eyes at Chen Hao's room and said, You can't blame him. You left early. I was with him for a period of time. A year ago, I was brought to the limitless immortal palace by my mother. It was the day before yesterday that I met up with him in Songyuan City, Chen Shui said helplessly. Then he talked about Chen Hao's experience during this period. He highlighted the main point and told them about how the beautiful sisters had saved Chen Hao's life, which made the three girls feel a little better. Phew, after entering the cultivation room, Chen Hao's powerful soul perception locked onto the four women's conversation. Since he was the one who had set up the barrier, it naturally wouldn't affect him. Seeing that Chen Shui had settled everything for him, he let out a long sigh of relief. He took out the pill that Venerable Han Mei gave him and swallowed it. As soon as the pill entered his stomach, it immediately surged with heat. In an instant, Chen Hao felt that his blood was circulating crazily. At the moment when his right arm was cut off, all the blood in his body surged towards his right arm as if it had found a vent. But miraculously, a powerful medicinal power blocked the blood and didn't leak out from the wound. Instead, it accelerated the growth of his flesh and blood by several times. He, who possessed the immortal bloodline, was already recovering slowly. At this moment, with the effect of the medicinal power, he didn't need to do much and began to recover at an astonishing speed. According to Venerable Han Mei, it would take 4 hours for a severed finger to regrow. But after only half an hour, Chen Hao's right arm had completely grown out. It was no different from before, and the strength of his flesh and blood didn't weaken at all. Phew! The harvest this time is huge. It seems like I'm about to break through. Old God, let me cultivate first, then we'll merge. Alright. 4 hours later, Chen Hao's cultivation room had a wave of dense energy in advance. He, who was in the late primordial soul stage, had finally succeeded in advancing to the peak of the late primordial soul stage. But this wave of dense energy did not end. Pieces of top-grade primordial crystal stones were consumed at an astonishing rate of 2 per 10 minutes. After another 8 hours, the dense energy that enveloped Chen Hao finally dissipated. Phew! Chen Hao let out a long breath and opened his eyes. Crackle, crackle, crackle. With a light shake, countless crisp explosive sounds rang out around his body. A power that would make an early-stage creation stage expert tremble in fear suddenly emanated from Chen Hao's body. Half-step to creation stage is actually so strong. The increase in strength from the late primordial soul stage to the peak of the late primordial soul stage is very limited. But at half-step to creation stage, it can be considered an increase in the realm. My body is at least 30% stronger, and my inner yuan has increased by more than 40%. Moreover, I can feel that I haven't completely digested the gains from this life-or-death situation. Not only Chen Hao, but even Huyan Aobo and the others were in a state of extreme surprise and joy at this moment. Chen Hao thought to himself, if I advance to the blessed realm, my will of the sword Tao and the various laws of heaven and earth that I've comprehended will increase by a realm. With my physical body and soul, it won't be a problem for me to trigger the heavenly punishment, but it's still better for me to stabilize my realm. This beast horde will last for at least a month. The first 10 days should be the best time for me to train. This beast tide could be at level 11. The higher the level of the beast tide, the longer it would last. Moreover, the monsters near the supply station would continue to grow stronger as time passed. This was undoubtedly the best opportunity for training. Old God, let's begin. Yes. Rumble. As the old god spoke, Chen Hao's mind directly exploded. Fuck. In that instant, Chen Hao directly cursed. He had not expected the fusion this time to be so violent. The old god did not give him any hints and directly threw a bomb into Chen Hao's soul palace, causing Chen Hao's soul to almost leave his body. Guard your mind. This fusion will be more painful than any before. This is just the appetizer. Appetizer? Damn it, bring it on. In the next moment, rays of 7-colored light rose from Chen Hao's body, but Chen Hao's entire body trembled violently. His brows were deeply furrowed, his teeth were tightly clenched, and cold sweat broke out. This was not physical pain, but pure pain that came from the depths of his soul. Chen Hao felt as if his soul was being bitten by thousands of ants as the old god's aura crazily drilled into it. This kind of pain was far beyond Chen Hao's imagination. It was 100 times, 1,000 times more terrifying than the first soul awakening or any of the heavenly punishments. Even with Chen Hao's tenacious nerves, he wished he could die, but his mind was still clear, and as time passed, his senses became sharper and clearer, directly causing this kind of pain to become more and more intense. Time passed minute by minute, second by second. Chen Hao completely forgot the concept of time, feeling as if millions of years had passed. Finally, just as Chen Hao was about to collapse, the pain suddenly disappeared completely. Phew. The fusion is a success. I didn't expect your endurance to be so strong. You didn't even faint, hee. This fusion is perfect, more perfect than any of my previous masters. The old god's words reverberated in Chen Hao's mind, obviously with a trace of surprise and admiration. Chen Hao's entire body trembled like a sieve for a full 2 minutes before he calmed down and said, "Old God, will the fusion in the future be so painful?" "How can that be? It's only this step that's so painful." It's okay. In the future, every time I fuse, the pain will increase by about 10 times. Damn, you can temper the 5-element sword first. When you see the effect, you will feel that everything is worth it. Clang. An hour later, a clear and melodious sword cry abruptly sounded out, and Chen Hao opened his eyes with a pleasantly surprised expression. The 5-element sword exuded a cold aura. Whether it was the shape or the quality, it had improved countless times. This is the upper-grade spirit treasure. Purely based on the quality of the sword body, it barely reaches the middle-grade spirit treasure. However, the materials we fused are all the top materials in the world. Although the formation is not the strongest, it is the most suitable for you now. It is stronger than the upper-grade spirit treasure that you bought? The old god said, this is also the benefit of tempering your own life source magic treasure. That's true. Chen Hao casually sent out a sword. A sword light easily left a deep sword hole on the wall of the cultivation room. When Chen Hao looked at the mark on the wall, he was a little dumbfounded. On the other side of the wall, there was a scream from Qin Shui. It's so easy to break through? Little Shui, I didn't do it on purpose. Chen Hao put his face close to the hole in the wall and said to Qin Shui next door. Their rooms were next to each other. The cultivation room was only separated by a 1-foot-thick wall. This wall was not only made of special materials, it also contained a powerful rune protection. However, Chen Hao casually sent out a sword and pierced it. If this was in the past, Chen Hao would not be able to do it unless he relied on the carving technique. Your sword? Chen Shui asked in surprise. She had sensed the incomparably sharp sword qi. Naturally, she knew that Chen Hao had pierced the wall during the sword test. Shu, lower your voice. This is my secret. Don't tell anyone for the time being. Little Shui, tell me what you want to refine. I guarantee that you will be satisfied. You can refine any middle-grade spirit treasure. You can choose the style. Are you sure you are not talking about a middle-grade spirit treasure? Chen Shui asked in disbelief as her eyes widened in surprise. Of course I'm sure. It's a spirit treasure. How is this possible? Everything is possible. All right, it's almost time. If you have recovered, let's go out first. They should be almost done. They are all waiting for you. Chen Shui said snappily. They are out. Remember, this time they killed 17 people from Limitless Demon Palace. You have every reason to take action. Move in batches. Don't let them see any clues. If they want to go deeper, it's naturally better. When Chen Hao and the rest walked out of the palace area, Fan Suixin sent a message to the 5 groups of disciples on the city wall far away. Chapter 433. How is this possible? Fan Suixin had just finished speaking when his expression suddenly changed, revealing a look of extreme surprise. When he saw Chen Hao and the others appear from afar, he did not think much of it. However, at this moment, he suddenly realized that apart from Helian Wuzi, Xia Yu, Tantai Lian, as well as Qin Shui, Jiang Hai, and Huang Wenxiu, who were already at the half-step to the manifestation realm, Chen Hao and the others had all broken through. Especially Chen Hao, who was only at the late primordial soul realm when he returned the day before. Now, he had advanced to the half-step to the manifestation realm, directly advancing by 2 small realms. How was this possible? It was only a day. It was normal for them to advance by 1 small realm, but to advance by 2 small realms in a row was a little too exaggerated. Furthermore, Chen Hao and the others had all advanced. If he had not seen this with his own eyes, Fan Suixin would never have believed this to be true. However, the truth was right in front of him. Wait. Fan Suixin was stunned for a moment before he suddenly transmitted his voice again. That Chen Hao has advanced to the half-step to the manifestation realm in just 1 day. The others have also advanced to the late primordial soul realm and the peak late primordial soul realm. Chen Fei, Bu Yuanshan, Chen Guang. The 5 of you will be divided into 5 groups, just in case. What you have to do is to kill them in 1 blow and not give them any chance to call for help. There must be no mistakes. Yes. The disciples of the Limitless Demon Palace's heartbroken hall responded in a low voice, but there was a trace of shock in their expressions. In particular, Soul Fighter, who was in the first group, was even more shocked. He had experienced Chen Hao's ability to challenge those of a higher level. When he was at the late primordial soul realm, he was able to fight evenly with him. How terrifying would the half-step to the manifestation realm be? Fortunately, Fan Suixin had arranged for a nameless peak late manifestation realm expert, which made him feel much more at ease. Little brother Chen Hao, just as Chen Hao led the group up the city wall and waited for the next opening of the seal, a gentle voice suddenly sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Is it Senior Meng Yichong? Did you guys have a conflict with the disciples of Limitless Devil Palace? Meng Yichong said, yesterday, When Fan Suixin, the palace master of the Broken Heart Hall of the Limitless Demon Palace, arrived, I overheard him talking with his disciple, Mo Wuxin. According to Mo Wuxin, your Aotian Immortal Palace ambushed them and killed 17 genius disciples. Due to my status, it's inconvenient for me to say too much to the two immortal venerables of the Limitless Immortal Palace. If you want to go out and fight against the beast tide, you must be careful. It's best not to leave the sight of the two immortal venerables. Are they going to make a move? Chen Hao stared at the densely packed monsters outside the city wall and calmly transmitted his voice. That should be the case. They are all in the blessed realm, and there are also those in the late stage of the blessed realm. Cough cough, there are also those at the peak of the late stage. If my guess is correct, they will lure you in. They can't directly attack near the city wall, but it's hard to say if they are far away. Remember? Alright, thank you for your reminder, Senior Meng. I'm really sorry, I was injured yesterday and didn't have time to thank Senior for your help. You're welcome. A genius like you is the hope of the boundless world. This is what I should do. Meng Yichong, who was standing far away, smiled when he heard Chen Hao's words. Obviously, he was very satisfied with Chen Hao's courteous words. By doing so, he had already violated the alliance's agreement not to participate in any power struggle. Originally, he had no intention of violating it. Otherwise, why didn't he tell Senior Immortal Han Mei and Senior Immortal Yun Wei yesterday? But now, he had told Chen Hao. The reason was very simple. In just one day, Chen Hao had advanced from the late stage of the primordial soul realm to the half-step to the blessed realm. This was absolutely incredible. In addition, Chen Hao had displayed a terrifying talent in the battle yesterday, which prompted him to make an exception for once. Because he thought it was worth it. Phew, after communicating with Meng Yichong, Chen Hao took a deep breath and stared at the monster tide outside the city wall. His eyes slowly narrowed, and two sharp and cold rays of light flashed in them. Soul Fighter, very good. Not only did you almost cause all of us to die, but you also inverted right and wrong. I want to see what tricks you can play. Right now, my combat power has definitely increased by more than 5 times compared to yesterday. As long as they are not monstrous geniuses in the middle or late stage of the blessed realm, I am not afraid. Even if they are at the peak of the late stage of the blessed realm, I still have the power to fight. And in this monster tide. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled into a faint evil smile. Cough cough. Boss, what's wrong with you? At that moment, Huyan Aobua, who still had some special feelings for Chen Hao, coincidentally saw the evil smile on Chen Hao's lips and could not help but ask. After a year of interacting with each other, he and his brothers and sisters had a rather thorough understanding of Chen Hao's temperament, at least on the surface. What did this signature evil smile mean? It meant that someone was going to suffer. It's nothing. These bastards almost killed us. As your boss, I can't wait to rush in and kill them all. Chen Hao stared at the monsters outside and said with a murderous look. Oh, I thought it was something else. Huyan Aobua said with a smile. Don't make a sound. When we go out later, all of you will stay near the city wall and form a battle formation. Little Shui, Little Wu, Yu, Little Yen, Jianghai, Wen Su, all of you will cooperate with their battle formation. Although the monsters are a little weak now, they can train our tenacity and will. Others take 2 hours, but I want all of you to last a day. Also, if I don't come back before dark, don't wait for me. Go back and recover first. Ah, what are you going to do? Chen Shui remained motionless, but she frowned and asked directly through voice transmission. Nothing much, just play with the trash from Limitless Demon Palace. Don't worry, with my current strength, no one can do anything to me unless they're at the deity stage. Back then, when I was at the early stage of the primordial soul stage, I lasted 3 days and 3 nights in the monster tide. If there's really danger, I'll contact all of you and ask your mother or Master Yun Wei to help. Don't worry. Everyone wanted to go with Chen Hao, but they were all rejected by Chen Hao in a domineering manner, so they could only give up. Even Chen Shui knew that she couldn't help in the face of an expert at the middle stage, late stage, or even the peak of the late stage. This made Xianxia and the others feel very helpless. They had been working hard and cultivating crazily, but in front of a monster like Chen Hao, they couldn't get close to him, let alone surpass him. Chen Hao didn't know that his decision this time had a great impact on Xianxia, who was eager to be strong and sincerely loyal to him. It also made Xianxia make a ruthless decision. Let's go. Hiss, 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 hiss. Less than an hour later, the Guardian restriction was activated. Countless Guardian groups and Guardians immediately turned into streams of light and rushed out of the Guardian restriction, merging into the dense beast tide. Chen Hao and the other 19 people also made their appearance. Compared to the day before, there were several times more cultivators who came to supply point 160 today, and there were countless experts. Nothing much happened when they were on the city walls, but the moment Chen Hao and the others made their appearance, they attracted the gazes of countless cultivators. Most people were attracted by the beauties, but there were a small number of cultivators who had seen Chen Hao and the others the day before, and they sucked in sharp breaths of air in shock. Buzzing discussions erupted sporadically from the people who knew Chen Hao and the others. Then, like a whirlwind, they swept through the front of the city walls in that direction. The words group leveled up and leveled up by 2 stages in a row became the most frequent words. Chen Hao and the others also became the focus of most people on the city walls. No one noticed that 5 squads made up of people at the beginning stage, middle stage, and later stage of Blessed Realm, as well as one at the peak of the later stage, had also fused into the monster tide tens of thousands of feet away from the spot where Chen Hao had entered the monster tide. In just a few minutes, the 5 squads formed a semicircle with their great strength. None of the people in the 5 squads wore the symbol of the faction they belonged to, and they had also deliberately changed their appearances. With just one glance, anyone could tell that they were trying to hide their true identities. However, this sort of situation was very normal in the cultivation world, and no one found it strange. Besides, the 5 squads acted as if they did not know each other. Due to their great strength, they jumped around and picked up the high-grade monsters around them to kill. This sort of situation was equivalent to blocking all the powerful monsters around Chen Hao and the others. Because of it, once Chen Hao and the others killed a wave of monsters close to them, they no longer had any Blessed Realm monsters to kill. Damn it, there's no challenge at all. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to go deeper and have some fun. What about you? More than 10 minutes later, Chen Hao's punches and kicks reduced the monsters around him to ashes. His expression seemed to become more and more gloomy, as if he was using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. He looked very unhappy. His voice was not very loud, but it was definitely loud enough for everyone to hear. Boss, didn't we say that we were going to train our tenacity, willpower, and teamwork in battle formations? That's our biggest weakness. Fuck, then continue. I can't hold it in anymore. There's no challenge at all. I'm going to have some fun. Shick. Chen Hao cast a disdainful glance at the crowd before he ran away from the city in a frenzy. What great combat power. He's really awesome. Of course. Yesterday, when he was at the later stage of the Essence Soul Realm, he displayed strength that was no weaker than an elite at the early stage of Blessed Realm. He might even have been at the middle stage. And he was injured yesterday. He even lost an arm. Which faction's genius disciple is he from? He should be from the Wuji Celestial Palace. Chen Hao was like a hot knife cutting through butter. He blasted the monsters into pieces with his violent and fierce punches and kicks as if he was venting his anger. When he ran toward the depths of the beast tide, the cultivators on the city wall, who had been watching them, suddenly started to talk about it. Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei, who were sitting in a pavilion on the city wall, smiled when they saw Chen Hao's arrogance. Young men are full of vigor and vigor. This is how it should be. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 434. Keeping a low profile and forbearance were symbols of cowardice in the world of cultivation, especially to young geniuses. This was because it would destroy one's spirit and cause one to lose one's state of mind. Moreover, It involved the most elusive thing in the world, fate. The greater a person's fame and reputation, the greater the amount of luck and opportunities that a person could gather. This was also the real reason why most disciples were arrogant and condescending. Of course, this was also the most basic expression of human nature. It was just that most people could not really control the degree of it. Junior brother Wuxin, what should we do? When they saw Chen Hao charging into the depths alone, the 5 people with the highest cultivation in the 5 teams all sent telepathic messages to Wuxin. Their goal was to lure Chen Hao and the others into the depths. Once they were out of sight, they would kill them all at lightning speed. However, they did not expect that only Chen Hao would enter the depths alone. Furthermore, from their conversation, it seemed that those people had no intention of entering the depths because they wanted to train their coordination, tenacity, and willpower. One is good. The real culprit is this fellow. Moreover, he is the only one who can threaten me. If we can kill him, the others will not be a threat. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Wuxin said coldly. Let's go. Try to hide as much as possible. Don't let him see through our intentions. Okay. Although Wuxin's cultivation was the lowest among them, none of them dared to look down on him. After all, Wuxin's talent and potential were not something they could compare to. In Fan Suixin's words, Wuxin was a once-in-a-century genius in Broken Heart Hall. If there were no accidents, his future achievements would definitely surpass Fan Suixin, the Hall Master. Therefore, even though this group of people had a higher cultivation level than Soul Fighter, they were still very respectful and obeyed everything he said. 5 at the peak of the advanced stage of the creation realm, 5 at the advanced stage of the creation realm, 10 at the intermediate stage of the creation realm, and 5 at the initial stage of the creation realm, a total of 30 people. How can he resist such a powerful lineup? Not far from the city wall, Chen Shui, who was fighting with the others, used her powerful soul perception to follow Chen Hao's figure deeper and deeper into the city. She could clearly sense the 5 teams surrounding Chen Hao. Her beautiful face flashed with deep worry. Even though she knew that Chen Hao's combat strength was terrifying, Chen Hao had just advanced to half-step to manifestation. With such a huge difference in cultivation realm and numbers, how could she not be worried? If it wasn't for Chen Hao telling them not to tell Venerable Han Mei and Venerable Yun Wei, Chen Shui would have told her mother, this was too risky. After hesitating for a long time, Chen Shui finally chose to believe in Chen Hao. He didn't succeed in that adventure? That time, it wasn't as if she had turned something she thought was impossible into a possibility or a miracle. Perhaps this was the reason why she would never be able to catch up with him. Chen Shui sighed softly in her heart. Her eyes became firm as she retracted her soul perception and immersed herself in honing her combat skills. 5 at the peak of the advanced stage of the creation realm, 5 at the advanced stage of the creation realm, 10 at the intermediate stage of the creation realm, and 5 at the initial stage of the creation realm. They really think highly of me. Just as Chen Shui was hesitating, Chen Hao's eyes flashed with a hint of arrogance as he thought to himself, fortunately, these people's talents can't be compared to Wuxin's. Otherwise, there's really no way to deal with them. His powerful soul perception sensed the aura of Wuxin and the others and the power they displayed as he estimated in his heart. Chen Hao knew that although he couldn't see their true combat strength, he could at least make a rough estimate, and that was enough. Although he was very confident, he wasn't so stupid as to fight with 30 people. If that wasn't courting death, then what was? Only an idiot would do that. Wuxin and the others were thousands of feet away from Chen Hao. Under the cover of the chaotic aura of the monster horde, they believed that Chen Hao wouldn't be able to see through their scheme. And that seemed to be the case. It had to be said that although Wuxin's talent and combat strength were powerful, his intelligence was really nothing much. To be more precise, he was a little brainless. If it was Chen Hao, how could he not think about how they had been discovered when they had followed Chen Hao and the others? And how had they been suddenly counterattacked? And how had they lost their puppet substitutes because of a sneak attack? Not fun at all. Damn it, I've advanced to the half-step to creation realm. Looks like my strength is boundless. Ha! Boom, boom, boom. Chen Hao's confidence swelled as he laughed loudly. accompanied by the sound of terrifying energy wreaking havoc. His voice was as arrogant as it could be, as arrogant as it could be. It's really strange. We've already gone 100 miles in, but there aren't even any decent monster commanders. How can those at the initial stage of the creation realm be enough? I'll continue to go deeper. Hee, that bullshit genius from Limitless Demon Palace, Wuxia, almost killed me. If I meet him again, I'll make him cry for his father and mother. I'll beat him until his ancestors can't recognize him. Yes, it's best to castrate this bastard first, then make him eat shit and drink piss. Then find a few strong half-human half-beast men and make him feel like he's in heaven until he dies. Chen Hao was like a madman. As he crazily hunted monsters, he quickly went deeper and deeper. At the same time, his expression was ruthless and arrogant as he hooted as if there was no one around. The people from Limitless Demon Palace, who had formed a semicircle and maintained a certain distance from Chen Hao, had extremely strange expressions on their faces. This was especially so for the 5 people who were with Wuxia. They were too embarrassed to even look at Wuxia. What kind of person was this? Not only was he fighting alone to gain experience, he was also venting his anger like a lunatic. Not only was he venting his anger, he was even targeting Wuxia. Who was Wuxia? He was a super genius that only appeared once in 100 years in Broken Heart Palace. He was an existence that they had to curry favor with. When had anyone dared to curse and insult him behind his back? They could imagine how much Chen Hao's words would drive Wuxia crazy. This brat is really a tragedy. Junior brother Wuxia is probably going crazy from anger. Later, we have to be more careful when we attack. It's best if we injure him severely and capture him alive. Then we can let junior brother Wuxia vent his anger. Yes, we should. I think that brat's appearance is definitely handsome and elegant. If junior brother Wuxia wants you to act as a strong half-human half-beast man, you should comply. Get lost. I don't like that. I can already see this brat's miserable appearance. But, to be honest, this brat's innate talent and battle strength are really terrifying. Damn it, he advanced 2 small realms in one day, but he's still only half-step to the manifestation realm. Look at his current battle strength. Even someone in the middle stage of the manifestation realm is not his match. It's also very difficult for someone in the late stage of the manifestation realm to kill him. Junior brother Wuxia suffered a loss at his hands. Moreover, it's under the condition that his cultivation level is higher than his. You can imagine how terrifying this brat will be when he grows up. Yes, if that's not the case, do you think the palace master only wanted to vent his anger on junior brother Wuxia and the 17 dead junior brothers and sisters? Such a monstrous genius would be considered an outstanding existence even in the entire limitless devil palace. He's definitely more powerful than junior brother Wuxia. Yes. If we can kill such a monstrous genius, we can also earn a lot of fate. Of course. If junior brother Wuxia eats meat, it's enough for us to drink some soup. The 2 leaders of the 2 groups, who were at the peak of the late stage of the manifestation realm, had a good relationship with each other. They communicated through telepathy. Wuxia gritted his teeth and his face turned green. If it wasn't for the fact that he was still far away from the city wall and could not escape the control of the 2 palace masters of the limitless immortal palace, he would have immediately exploded. At this moment, he could only endure the anger of tearing Chen Hao into pieces. There was no other way. If Chen Hao asked for help at this moment, with the strength of senior immortal Han Mei and senior immortal Yun Wei, they would definitely be able to get the supply station's president to open the seal immediately. They would also be able to launch an extremely powerful attack without moving and save Chen Hao. The terror of the Earth Immortal Realm was definitely not something they could compare with. Just like when Fan Suixin saved him yesterday, he was directly sucked into the city from 100 miles away. What kind of power was that? It's been almost an hour. Huyen Aobua and the others who were fighting could not fully engage in the battle. Even Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu, and Tan Tai Lian could not do the same. This was because they were all worried about Chen Hao's situation. Their soul perception was far inferior to Chen Hao's. They had already lost track of Chen Hao's aura and could not sense what kind of lineup the limitless demon palace had sent. How could they not be worried? Or rather, how could they not be curious? After all, most of them had blindly chosen to believe in Chen Hao. Open! Open! Finally, everyone could not help but open their psychic mirror and communication devices. Everyone present had already joined Ao Tian's guardian group. Moreover, when Chen Hao refused to let them join him, he had also agreed to the condition that they were allowed to watch. This way they would feel more at ease. Therefore, when everyone sent out the message to open their psychic mirror and communication devices, Chen Hao also picked them up one after another. He separated a strand of his consciousness into the psychic mirror and communication devices. Everyone was watching Chen Hao's every move as they fought. When Chen Hao was like a madman, arrogantly scolding from time to time, Huyan Aobua and the other men, as well as Bai Xiaomei, who was even more manly than men, all showed expressions of admiration and worship. Jiang Hai and Huang Wenxiu, who did not know Chen Hao very well, were a little confused and excited. They could not figure out what kind of image Chen Hao had in their hearts. As for the sisters, Tan Hui and Meng Xiao, all three of them had funny expressions on their faces. However, Helian Wuzi, Xia Yuyu and Tan Tai Lian, who had not seen Chen Hao for more than 2 years, were a little dumbfounded, dazed and embarrassed. Especially when Chen Hao said that he wanted the half-human half-beast strong man and whatnot. Boring, split for me. Chen Hao's body suddenly flashed, and in an instant, there were 5 of him. 4 doppelgangers and 1 original body. This is my limit. Come, let's compete with ourselves and see who can kill more. The 5 Chen Hao laughed at the same time. The strength of each of their auras was exactly the same. The only difference was the attributes of the 5 elements. The 5 figures were of metal, wood, water, fire and earth respectively. It was impossible to tell which was the original body and which was the doppelganger. Chapter 435. Chi. Following Chen Hao's crazy words, the 5 figures suddenly spread out and rushed towards the depths. Chen Hao's sudden action caused the people on both sides to express different opinions. Soul Fighter and the rest were shocked and had a headache. Huyan Aobua and the rest were only shocked. They did not know that Chen Hao could condense 4 doppelgangers. Seeing everyone's shocked expression, Chen Shui, who had activated the psychic mirror and communication device, frowned slightly. Only Chen Shui knew that Chen Hao used the 5-element sword as the foundation to refine 5 doppelgangers. Including his original body, there should be 6. But now there were only 5. What did this mean? It meant that Chen Hao's original body had already hidden. In fact, it was only for a moment. Huyan Aobua and the rest had already seen the clues. Because the scene in the psychic mirror changed to 5 different directions and Chen Hao was rushing forward. They only saw the back view. The core of the psychic mirror, which should have been the main image of Chen Hao, was empty. There's no room for negotiation. Boss is definitely going to take them down one by one. That's too awesome. He actually has 5 clones. Moreover, the opponent definitely won't be able to distinguish the aura of these 5 clones. Otherwise, Boss wouldn't have done this. That's for sure. Sigh, we thought that Boss had no more secrets in front of us. Who would have thought that Boss was still hiding his unique skills? Damn it, I don't want to fight anymore. Why don't we go to the city wall and watch the show? I don't want to be beaten up. Boss told us to hold on for a day. See if I don't play you guys to death. Chen Hao, who had blended into the world, was like a fish shuttling between the monsters. He was full of ridicule as he sensed that the 5 teams had to be stretched to the sides as his 5 doppelgangers advanced in 5 different directions. At this moment, they were already more than 300 miles away from the city. Besides him, Soul Fighter and the others, they couldn't see any other cultivators. Moreover, the monsters could not sense his presence, so even though the monsters were densely packed, they were either chasing after his clone or approaching the supply station. Therefore, Chen Hao's state of being one with everything in the world was not very difficult. At most, it was a little more dangerous. This kid's doppelganger is so realistic. Which one is the real one? The one in the middle is most likely to be true. After all, once the doppelganger is too far away from the main body, it will lose control of his mind. He's not stupid, so he definitely won't use both sides. See, it won't be long before he'll be exposed. As Chen Hao transformed into 5 figures and dispersed into the depths of the beast tide, Soul Fighter and the others were having a discussion. Although they knew that the possibility of the middle was the highest, they couldn't completely rule out the possibility that Chen Hao was an idiot. Therefore, since they were already deeper in than Chen Hao, they could only follow Chen Hao's 5 doppelgangers and move further away. In their opinion, it wouldn't be long before Chen Hao's doppelgangers couldn't continue. After all, the distance between the doppelgangers and the main body couldn't be too far apart, especially in the midst of the beast tide. How can this be? After another quarter of an hour, Soul Fighter and the others became more and more puzzled and surprised. They were now more than 500 miles away from the supply station, which was close to the point where they could attack. However, Chen Hao's 5 doppelgangers were still spreading out, and the distance between them was increasing. Furthermore, the aura of each doppelganger didn't weaken in the slightest. Not only that, they were displaying amazing combat power in the midst of the beast tide. How could this be? Even if the main body is in the middle, at this moment, the doppelgangers are almost 200 miles away. How can he control them so well? Especially, these are 4 doppelgangers? 4 doppelgangers and the main body. Under such circumstances, one would have to multitask. Not many people could do this, not to mention that each of the doppelgangers was displaying great combat power. Not to mention, the distance between the doppelgangers was now 400 miles. In the eyes of Soul Fighter and the others, this was absolutely impossible. Don't worry, from now on, let's not kill any high-level monsters. I don't believe that he can still control them. Everyone keep a good distance. The moment he retrieves his doppelgangers, it will be the time for us to surround and kill him. All right, they must have psychic mirrors and communication devices. If I attack any team, I will definitely be discovered by the other teams. I need to keep a distance. Chen Hao silently moved through the monster horde that did not notice him and waited for the best time to attack. It had to be said that the presence of psychic mirrors and communication devices limited his ability to attack. Otherwise, the distance at this moment would have been sufficient. But now, he had to continue distancing himself. Fortunately, Chen Hao's 5 doppelgangers had the 5 elements sword as the body and the 5 divine beasts as the soul. The 5 divine beasts had been upgraded following the fusion with Chen Hao and Chen Hao's advancement. At this moment, the fusion between Chen Hao and Old God had advanced further, causing the 5 element sword to be upgraded to a middle-grade spirit treasure. Moreover, it was an existence more magical and powerful than a superior-grade spirit treasure in this world. This also caused the 5 divine beasts to be upgraded directly. In fact, unlike ordinary doppelgangers, Chen Hao's 5 doppelgangers did not require Chen Hao to expend any energy at all. He only needed to maintain a trace of his mind. At this moment, the ones who were truly controlling the 5 elements sword were the 5 divine beasts. Which one of them was not an old monster with rich combat experience? Not to mention 400 miles, even if they were thousands of miles apart, there would be no problem. Another 15 minutes later, Chen Hao was already 50 miles away from the leftmost team. A monster in the initial stage of Blessed Realm suddenly let out a terrifying roar and a pained cry. Without any warning, it attacked the low-grade monsters around it violently. This lasted for a full half a minute before it calmed down, causing the monsters around it to tremble in fear. They did not understand what was going on. None of the monsters noticed that there was a blood stain around a scale that was much larger than a wash basin on the back of the gigantic monster that was 100 feet tall. In truth, the scale had already fallen off and been placed on its back. Master, the possession is a success. I didn't expect that the power of my soul would be stronger than that of a monster in the initial stage of Blessed Realm. All right, control it well. Just don't let the monsters sense anything unusual. I guarantee that I'll complete the mission, No one expected that the gigantic commander of monsters in the initial stage of Blessed Realm would instantly become Chen Hao's territory, and the monster's life force did not weaken at all. An army was trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. Under Old God's training, Ito Ta finally began to show his worth. Chen Hao, on the other hand, had sneaked into the monster's enormous body without anyone noticing. If this had happened a day ago, Chen Hao would not have been able to do such a strange thing even if he was beaten to death. But now it was easy for him. First, he used the soul-subduing art that Old God had taught him at lightning speed. He used a mental attack to numb the monster's soul for a short period of time. Then Ito Ta executed the evil art of possession at lightning speed and approached the monster. At the same time, Chen Hao used his fastest speed to break through the monster's scales and crawled into its body. The 3 procedures were completed in one go, and there were no flaws. Even Chen Shui and the others, who saw that Chen Hao was awake through the spirit channeling mirror, did not understand what had happened. In an instant, the scene in the spirit channeling mirror turned into a small space that made them feel strange. Inside the monster's body, Ito Ta roared without restraint and vented. He had stayed in Chen Hao's mind for several years, and he had long been bored out of his mind. Although his body was only that of a monster at that moment, it still made him very excited. Unfortunately, even though his soul power had become much stronger under Old God's training and he could completely control the power of this blessed realm monster, he did not have any ultimate skills that he could use. First, the monster's physique and the way it circulated its energy was completely different from that of a cultivator. Second, aside from his soul power, he was originally just a low-level cultivator in the nascent soul realm. These were all things that did not make sense. Fortunately, his mission was very simple. Another blessed realm monster is here. Let it go. When the team on the left saw the blessed realm monster controlled by Chen Hao, they immediately took a detour and avoided it. They wanted to leave it for Chen Hao's clone to enjoy. But strangely, the blessed realm monster bared its fangs and brandished its claws. It let out strange cries and charged at them. It had to be worth it. There was a distance of 100 miles between them. If there was no need, a monster commander with human intelligence would basically charge in the direction of the supply station. It would definitely not change its direction because they were 100 miles away. Moreover, when the 6 of them widened the area and made enough space for the monster to pass through, the monster charged straight at the weakest among them, who was in the initial stage of Blessed Realm. Bang bang bang, the monster horde automatically avoided it. Ito Ta controlled his body, and when there were no monsters obstructing him, he moved as fast as lightning. He traveled 100 miles in the blink of an eye. You're asking for death. The powerful fighter in the initial stage of Blessed Realm was restricted by the monster horde, and his movement speed was greatly limited. At that moment, it was clearly too late for him to avoid the monster in the initial stage of Blessed Realm. With a furious roar, he attacked violently. It was just a monster commander in the initial stage of Blessed Realm. He did not care about it at all. In his eyes, the monster had come to die. The other 5 people who were far away and formed a semicircle with Chen Hao's clone still maintained a certain distance from it. They also did not care about it. They just felt that the monster was a little too abnormal. Boom. The monster let out a furious roar that reverberated through the world. Its huge body instantly charged into the air and pressed down on the powerful fighter in the initial stage of Blessed Realm like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. It completely ignored his violent attacks. No matter who it was, the monster was doomed. Die, idiot! The monster's huge palms swiftly spread open in an agile manner. At the instant its body was struck by the cultivator's violent energy, it released an incredibly fierce and extremely condensed energy. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 436. A pain scream erupted from the cultivator's mouth. At that moment he felt a bone-chilling cold. Unfortunately, even though he thought that victory was already in his grasp, he could not react in time. He felt a chill at the center of his brows, and he saw the monster's gigantic body being torn to shreds. His eyes widened, and they were filled with terror and terror. How is this possible? That was the last thing he thought. What? The other 4 people in the group did not expect such an outcome. Besides, they did not have time to save the cultivator. He was actually killed by a monster in the initial stage of Blessed Realm? How is this possible? The 4 of them could not understand. What shocked them even more was that at this moment, the monster whose skin and flesh were lacerated actually let out a furious roar and stood up violently. Raging flames surged around its body, and the huge injuries that its body had received also began to rapidly recover. A mutated monster? Junior brother Yang, go and kill it. Take revenge for junior brother Zhang. After a brief moment of shock, the leader of the group, an elite at the peak of the later stage of Blessed Realm, ordered with a sullen expression. Understood. The person called Junior Brother Yang was an elite at the middle stage of Blessed Realm. He was also the person closest to the person who was killed. In their eyes, even if it was a mutated monster, he would be enough to kill it. After all, the person was already dead. They could not allow a dead person to disrupt their footwork. It was enough to have one person kill the monster and take care of its remains. But, 10 minutes later, the faces of the people in the group were ashen. They could no longer care about anything else and charged at the mutated monster. Because the second elite at the middle stage of Blessed Realm did not follow in the footsteps of the first. What happened over there? The other 4 groups only noticed the abnormality at that moment, and they asked one another. Fuck, we ran into a mutated monster here. Gong Changsen and Yang Si, those 2 idiots died because they were careless. What? A mutated monster? I'll go and kill it first. It won't affect us. Roar. When the remaining 4 furious experts rushed over, the mutated monster raised its head to the sky and let out a terrifying roar. However, before the 4 experts could reach it, the monster tore apart the corpses of the 2 experts and stuffed them into its bloody mouth. No one noticed that a figure that was hidden in all things in the world had quietly left. When the 4 of them arrived, they were all furious and attacked violently. No matter how strong the monster was, it was directly turned into a cloud of blood mist. It couldn't be more dead. Damn it, they can only blame themselves for being too careless. Their team's communication is only established between the 5 leaders. The team's communication is also locked onto the team leader. Then let's do it one by one. The formless Chen Hao's handsome face flashed with a touch of coldness and arrogance, filled with endless killing intent. Regardless of whether it was the main culprit or an accomplice, he never knew what mercy was for lowly people who wanted to kill him. Just like when he killed the 30 peerless geniuses in the South Sea Islands, there was nothing he didn't dare to do. Even if the opponent this time was a colossus like the limitless Demon Palace, he didn't have any scruples. Although he knew that if he did so, it would be very troublesome and even dangerous in the future. Silently shuttling through the group of monsters, Chen Hao rushed to another team. The nightmare began to envelop the disciples of the limitless Demon Palace. Through the psychic mirror, Chen Shui and the others who were watching Chen Hao's every move were a little sluggish. When Chen Hao was inside the monster's huge body, they couldn't figure out what their surroundings were. However, when Chen Hao attacked from inside the monster's body and suddenly appeared, and when the monster's body broke open to look outside, they understood what was going on. However, no one could figure out how Chen Hao had done it. But what happened next was even more shocking. In less than 15 minutes, the second squad ran into a mutated monster again. The weakest among them, who was at the initial stage of Blessed Realm, was killed by the mutated monster. With their previous experience, this time, the leader of the squad sent 2 middle-stage Blessed Realm fighters to charge forward. In the end, the 2 middle-stage Blessed Realm experts died, and the mutated monster died together with them. This caused the people from Limitless Demon Palace to feel a little uneasy. Soul Fighter was called to the side of the disciple with the highest cultivation in the team. He was afraid that Soul Fighter would also run into a mutated monster. This monster horde is a little strange. In less than an hour, 2 mutated monsters appeared, and they're extremely powerful. Junior brother Soul Fighter, I don't think we can wait any longer. If we continue to go deeper, if we run into a mutated monster in the middle stage or later stage of Blessed Realm, we might all die. Yes. The one in the middle is most likely to be his real body, so let's take care of it. The other 4 will be left to the 4 of you. We'll approach at the same time and disguise ourselves to form a team with him. We'll try to attack at the same time and don't give him any chance to call for help. Otherwise, at this distance, I'm afraid we won't be able to stop the 2 immortal supremacies from the limitless immortal palace from coming to rescue him. Soul Fighter said coldly. He did not expect Qianhao's luck to be so good. He thought that by letting the powerful monsters pass, Qianhao's real body would be exposed. But now, before Qianhao's real body was exposed, 5 of them had already died. Understood. The 5 of us are at the peak of the late stage of Blessed Realm. Do you think we can make him do anything? Let's go. Hiss hiss hiss. At this moment, the 5 teams immediately surrounded Qianhao's 5 doppelgangers. Doing so was very risky. It was not that they were taking a risk, but that Qianhao had discovered them. If he saw their purpose and directly called for help, then their operation would be in vain. After all, they were only 1,000 miles away from the supply station. With the abilities of the 2 celestial paragons, they could arrive in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, as they approached without any purpose, Qianhao's 5 doppelgangers did not react even though they had clearly discovered them. They continued to execute their own ultimate techniques and madly killed the monsters around them as they continued to venture deeper. It had to be said that Qianhao's strength had already shocked all of them to the point that they could not be any more shocked. It was already unbelievable that Qianhao alone could be so strong, but it was even more unbelievable that he could still maintain his strength after splitting into 5 doppelgangers. You can't hold on anymore? Qianhao wanted to kill a few more, but when he sensed their movements, he knew that the possibility of him killing them one by one within mutated monsters was not high. Killing 5 people in a row, 2 in the early stage of Blessed Realm and 3 in the middle stage of Blessed Realm, seemed easy, but Qianhao had used up a lot of energy. Moreover, Qianhao knew that this was the result of a sneak attack. If he had fought them head-on, it would have been impossible for him to have such an effect. Split up. After thinking about it for a moment, Qianhao sucked in a deep breath and made a decision. Suddenly, the 5 doppelgangers changed their direction and spread out to the sides at an even greater speed. Qianhao hid in the body of a monster in the early stage of Blessed Realm and approached the group furthest to the side without any obstructions. Fuck, another mutated monster? Qianhao had already killed 2 people in the furthest left group, so there were only 4 people left. With their previous experience, when they saw the monster commander in the early stage of Blessed Realm charge toward one of them at a terrifying speed without any obstructions, the other 3 instantly roared in anger. I'll kill it first. Since the 4 of them wanted to surround and kill Qianhao, they were not very far away from him. When they saw the monster's abnormal actions, how could they dare to let one of them face him? The elite at the peak of the later stage of Blessed Realm instantly turned into a stream of light and charged through the layers of monsters. This roar, when the monster was only 1,000 feet away from the cultivator, and the elite at the peak of the later stage of Blessed Realm was only 3,000 feet away from the monster, no one knew that Qianhao and Itoda had already left without a sound. The monster, whose soul had suddenly returned to its body, let out a furious roar at the sky, venting the endless frustration it had just felt. Die for me! Shik shik shik! Rumble, roar, the monster, who had just gotten a breather, did not expect that it would be greeted with a violent attack from an elite at the peak of the later stage of Blessed Realm. It did not even have time to react before it was reduced to ashes. Amazing, senior brother Zhao is really, a martial artist in the later stage of Blessed Realm was cheering for his senior brother, but before he could finish his sentence, his voice came to an abrupt halt. His head exploded like a watermelon, and a terrifying explosion followed. When the people from Limitless Demon Palace reacted, they saw many monsters fighting over the elite at the late stage of Blessed Realm. What's going on? What's going on? All of them widened their eyes in shock as they stared at the scene in the mediumship mirror. Chills ran down their spines. Immediately after, when everyone's attention was attracted by the elite who had suddenly died, a shrill scream of pain rose into the air. Another elite at the middle stage of Blessed Realm had his heart pierced through by an extremely terrifying and fierce power. In just a moment, 2 people had died. The first was Xianxia using the crowd's mentality to create a diversion. The second person had died completely due to shock, and chills running down his spine. That was all. It seemed simple, but to Xianxia, it was a great risk. If there was even the slightest mistake, he would be exposed. Hence, when he attacked twice, not only did he have to hide in the world, he also had to use dark energy to envelop his body at the moment he attacked so that the enemy's mediumship mirror could not see him clearly. Once he was discovered, he would not be able to continue with his sneak attack. There's an elite. There's definitely an elite. At that moment, as long as they were not idiots, they would know that they had been ambushed by an elite. When they thought about the situation with the mutated monsters, their hearts turned cold. There was no doubt that the so-called mutated monsters were completely under the control of an elite. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.